Meeting to order.
Welcome to Nixa City Hall. This video is going to provide you with an overview of how the City of Nixa conducts City Council meetings. We encourage everyone to attend and participate in City Council meetings. This is part of how democracy works at the local level, listening to the perspectives of subject matter experts, city residents, and other community members helps our elected leaders make more informed decisions. Before we start the meeting, let's review some of Council's rules of order. These rules help us make sure our meetings are orderly and efficient, while protecting the ability of everyone to have an opportunity to speak. Please be respectful of the person speaking and hold your own comments until it is your turn to speak. Presenters are invited by the Council to provide information during the meeting to the Council. These are informational presentations only, and nothing will be voted on at the time of the presentation. Presenters are not time limited. There are two times when all other visitors will be able to speak to Council. The first is during the visitors section of the agenda, and the second is during any public hearing regarding an agenda item. During the visitors section, anyone may speak to Council about any topic, whereas the public hearings regarding specific agenda items allow you to make comments for Council to consider before they make a decision on that topic. Whether you wish to speak during any public hearing or the visitors section, the following rules of order will apply. 1. Only one person should speak at a time. Be respectful of the person speaking and wait to speak until it is your turn. 2. Anyone speaking must do so from the podium and speak into the microphone. 3. You must first state your name and provide your address in writing to the city clerk before beginning your comments. 4. All speakers will be given 5 minutes to make their comments to the Council. The mayor or Council may have additional questions for speakers after this 5-minute period. 5. All comments should be addressed to the mayor and Council. 6. If you have questions about existing city processes, programs, or policies, or if you need assistance from staff on any issue, please contact City Hall during normal business hours and we'll be happy to assist you or answer any questions you may have at that time. The public hearing is designed to provide the public an opportunity to provide testimony and information to the mayor and council regarding the decisions they may be considering. Keep in mind this meeting will be recorded and live streamed with video and audio. Therefore, all comments relevant to this meeting must be spoken into a microphone, otherwise video viewers will not be able to hear you. In the case of a closed session or technical difficulties, some meetings or portions of meetings may not actually be recorded or streamed. The use of cell phones during council meetings is discouraged, so please silence all devices now. Thank you for watching, and thank you for engaging with the City of Nixa. The meeting will begin shortly.
Sean Lucas.
Here.
Aaron Peterson.
Here.
Darlene Graham.
Here.
Zern Vess.
Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have two presenters this evening. First up, we will have Drew Douglas. He's going to present an update on the strategic plan.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just waiting for my presentation to come up there. Thank you, Macy. Make sure we're turned on here. All right. So we've got a strategic plan update for you tonight. This is a plan that was adopted at the end of 2020. And so it's just kind of appropriate for us to come by periodically and give you an update on how we're doing on progress. So far there are 6 kind of strategic priority areas where we've divided everything that's in the strategic plan in those 6 buckets. And we've already given you updates in the past on the first 4 buckets, and this is our first time giving you an update on the last 2. So we're going to cover those tonight in depth. And that actually kind of gives us the first time that we've given an update on all 6 of those sections. And then what we'll plan to do is another point maybe this fall, coming up soon, we'd like to do something where we invite the committee that you'll learn about that helped us develop this plan, as well as the public and council to come to kind of a workshop meeting where we'd go through an update of the entire plan, all 6 sections, and kind of have some discussion on how we feel we're doing and maybe what we need to refocus some effort into. So we'll have that coming up soon, but this is just kind of a way to catch us up on fun, unique places and hometown spirit. Those are the last 2 sections that we haven't covered yet. So, and since we have 2 new council members, although Zern's not here, for Kelly, for your benefit, and Matt, since I don't think we've done an update even since you've been on council, so this will help you kind of understand a little bit of how we got the plan that we have. So we'll go through a couple slides about that, and then we'll dive into the update. So about the strategic planning process, that was really started with Imagine Nixa. That was an effort that was alive from February through June of 2020. If you'll remember, that was also the time of the pandemic. It was deep, dark times, but we made it through. And it was kind of a little hard to compete with the pandemic, and people's attention was focused on that. But considering, I think we did a pretty good job of getting the community to spend some time thinking about the future of our community and trying to imagine where they wanted us to go in the future. And so City Council set the strategic vision. You guys defined and adopted the definitions of those 6 priority areas. We'll go over those here in a minute. Then we launched ImagineNixa.com, which is a website designed to take community input. And we had multiple tools on that website through which we could take ideas and kind of observe discussion across the community. And we asked the community to think, how can we take this vision and really make it become reality? That was kind of the core purpose of that website. And that site was live from February 11th through June 30th. Here's some engagement stats from that website. We had 433 registered users, over 9,000 site visits, nearly 600 ideas and comments that were submitted to kind of a wall of ideas, which is one of the tools we had on there. We had 142 responses to a customer service survey, over 1,000 contributions to the discussion forums, from 813 total visitors to the discussion forums. Macy, you might have to click back on the PowerPoint so I can advance. There we go. Oh, now it's jumping. Okay, so, yeah. So the advisory committee was made up of, we had 15 people on there. We invited 16, and I think we had 1 drop out. So this is the 15 that were engaged. We had really good attendance to those meetings. We had a very high participation rate among the members who were selected on there. And that was really kind of designed to be a diverse cross-section of folks from the community. So we had all different ages, different races, we had different professions, we had really kind of a good cross-section of our community, very representative, I think. And they reviewed public input from ImagineNixa.com. They had over 27 hours worth of discussion spread across 9 meetings. It was a lot of in-depth discussion. And staff were there from the city just to provide context and information, kind of serve as subject matter experts that they could interview to learn a little bit about things as they were trying to kind of decide how to craft action plans. And so they crafted 60 action plans, and each of those was adopted by unanimous vote. So the wording is very particular of the action plans, where they said, this is what we want you to do over the next 5 years as a city. And you can see the list of names of folks that were on that advisory committee. And the plan is structured this way. There are strategic priorities at the top of the funnel, if you will, and those were adopted by council. That describes the vision and values, and we'll read through what those are here in a minute. Then you're going to see action plans, and we're going to go over the action plans in those last 2 areas. And each action plan describes a specific desired result. And it's approved by unanimous vote of the committee. Each describes how we want the city to do more or to do something new. So if it's just something that we already do, is something already part of our normal operations day to day, and we're doing a pretty good job of it, we don't put that in the strategic plan as, hey, keep doing status quo, right? The strategic plan is all about new, or like, hey, I know you're trying, but we really need to do more, and we really do need a lot more on this area, okay? So that's what kind of qualified it to become an action plan. And they are non-negotiable. The idea that we told the committee was, what are the things that you really want the city council and the staff to work on, period, right? And those are the action plans. And we're expected to follow through on each of those things. And then the action steps is where there's some flexibility. That's how we try to figure out, okay, well, if this is the goal, if the action plan defines a goal, how do we actually achieve that goal? There's some specifics that we might have to do as staff. And so those are things that are assigned to various departments and staff by the city administrator, and they represent incremental steps to help the city achieve that desired result defined by the action plan. Staff craft most of what those action steps are. Sometimes it just takes some expertise to know that to achieve this goal, we're going to have to do X, Y, and Z, specific things, right? But some of those action steps actually came right out of the input we collected through ImagineNixa.com or from the committee members. And the idea is that these ideas, the action steps, they might evolve or change over time. So staff may go, we might try this to solve this problem, but then as we go down that path, we realize, that's really not going to work out for us. We're going to have to change tactic, right? And so that's why there's some kind of flexibility built in there on the action steps, whereas those action plans, that's the big picture goal, those are not flexible. We've got to try to achieve those goals one way or another. So, the action steps presented here are those which are completed, newly operational, or in progress, and underway since the adoption of the plan. So things that we were already doing pre-2020, that's not going to be included in this update. Any questions about the process of how we got our strategic plan? No? All right. Let's dive in then. So, as a review, our strategic vision statement was adopted by the council at that time. And it says, the city of Nixa will be a high-performance government, creating a safe community, reliable infrastructure, and sustainable economy with a vibrant atmosphere united by hometown spirit. So, what do we mean by those things? High-performance government is defined as, we will continue to create effective, diverse, and innovative teams within the municipal organization, which will use efficient processes to produce measurable and actionable results as we provide high-quality public services in a way that is clear, accountable, and financially responsible while engaging citizens and residents. Community safety is defined as, we will promote an exceptional quality of life through partnerships and proactive measures to ensure Nixa is safe, healthy, and welcoming. Number 3 is reliable infrastructure. We will develop and maintain future-proof infrastructure designed to meet current needs and accommodate growth. We will provide safe, reliable, and environmentally friendly services. Sustainable economy. We will help our local businesses continue to thrive and expand while developing an atmosphere of entrepreneurship. We will engage in partnerships to create an environment which fosters the job skills and workforce required to succeed in tomorrow's economy. We will invest in our community to attract further private investment and economic development. And with that, now we're on to the 2 sections that we're going to get into tonight. So Fun and Unique Places is, we will cultivate vibrant, unique, and accessible spaces which attract and benefit residents, businesses, and visitors. We will seek to add local flavor to new and existing spaces where people will want to spend time. Public spaces will offer fun and healthy recreational opportunities for all. As you can see, these definitions, they're not very controversial. There really shouldn't be anything there that's fighting words, right? It's trying to find those common threads of what can everybody get behind as a community that we want to push towards, right? And trying to keep that clear vision. So, Fun and Unique Places. In order to beautify the Nixa community, the City of Nixa shall, action plan number 1, improve public spaces by incorporating landscaping, fountains, and art, and conduct routine maintenance. That's the goal that was set by the committee, which is not flexible, right? They really want us to do that. So what have we done to try to achieve that? Well, there's 3 action steps that have been assigned so far, and one of those is completed. We have identified areas within the existing parks which are ideal for hosting public art. In progress, we have identified a prioritized list of locations on public property which need improvements. And we had one thing that we tried but failed. We put a ballot issue forward in November, which would have provided funding to support both parks and police needs. The proposed sports complex would have been self-supporting once operational, with a potential to free up some revenue in the parks budget for more beautification efforts. But voters said no. In order to beautify the Nixa community, the City of Nixa shall, action plan number 2, invest in 5 art installation projects, including sculptures, fountains, statues, and other art, on public property. So there are 4 action steps assigned here to staff, 2 of which are operational. One of those is coordinating with the Nixa Arts Council on identifying and implementing projects. Katie from our Parks Department has been working on that. Operational also is sculptures were placed at Macaulay and Rotary Parks through the Nixa Arts Council. So we've got some sculptures on park land now, which we didn't have before the strategic plan. In progress, locations at Nixa City Hall and PD are potential additional installation locations for sculpture or other art, but we are holding off on those things since we are still in the process of, now since we have the tax revenue in place for the police department expansion, we don't want to go placing sculptures and then have to tear them right down for construction, right? So we're going to wait on those things. And in progress, electrical box decoration program is still being coordinated with the Chamber of Commerce and Arts Council, but there's still some hurdles there on that project. In order to beautify the Nixa community, the City of Nixa shall, action plan number 3, establish a citywide maintenance department to coordinate maintenance of all public structures, landscaping, and spaces to ensure functionality, operability, and fresh, clean appearance. There are 2 action steps assigned here. We are making progress on maintenance schedules, so we have one in place now that is operational for our HVAC systems across the city, and we also have a maintenance schedule in place for the public buildings. However, also of note here is that the Parks Department continues to struggle with maintenance because it's hard to keep staffing on those. So additional funding for parks operations and maintenance with higher salaries for maintenance staff would help in this area. In order to beautify the Nixa community, the City of Nixa shall, action plan number 4, implement a process for members of the public to beautify public spaces. 3 action steps are assigned here. 1 is operational. Program-specific policies are in place for sculpture program and electric box art program, and each program will require its own specific policy as we go forward. In progress also is that we are working on designating some volunteer days for Nixa Parks. That's something that they're working on this year. And also in progress is a streetscape program done by Public Works, where they're coordinating with residents of Wicklow, for example. The first piece that we're trying to do with streetscaping is the residents of Wicklow HOA will be landscaping the island and the roundabout there at Tracker and Oldcastle. And Public Works is still working to identify a list of other streetscape projects that we'd like to get to in the future. Action plan number 5 is to create and implement a consistent water tower painting plan. There are 3 action steps assigned here. Completed is to create a rotation schedule for repainting all water towers. So we have that schedule. We have a plan in place for which towers are going to be painted in which years. And in progress, we have a water rate study that's in progress, which is going to take into account the cost of this accelerated water tower painting program so we can afford the CIP funding for those projects. So that's making sure that that's the responsibility, the financial responsibility side, which is also included in the high performance government, right? We want to make sure that if we're going to do something, we've got a way to pay for it. In progress, 3 out of 4 water towers will have been pre-painted by the end of 2023, and the goal is to repaint 4 towers by the end of 25. In order to improve connectivity for pedestrians and bicyclists, the City of Nixa shall, action plan 6, create a digital and printed mapping system of all pedestrian-friendly pathways. There are 3 steps assigned. 1 is in progress. All existing sidewalks and trails in Nixa are mapped and color-coded. You can actually get those and see that through nixa.com. However, specific routes have not been identified yet, named or marked, and we would need signage on those routes if we want to have like here's the red route, or here's the east to west bike route across town. All those things would still need to be kind of developed, and part of the holdback on that is really the infrastructure is still not in place. We are still missing pieces, whether it's bike lanes or trails or sidewalks. There's still some of that infrastructure that's missing before we can really have routes that we would advertise to the public as, hey, go enjoy this route. So we really got to kind of get the infrastructure in first before we can promote the routes. And same thing goes for printed trails map that we want to do as well. In order to improve connectivity for pedestrians and bicyclists, the City of Nixa shall, action plan 7, prioritize funding to connect existing school and park properties to the regional trails identified in the OTO Regional Trails Plan. There are 5 steps assigned here. 1 is completed. Identify sidewalk sections needed for connection to the regional trails. And in progress, we've got to identify a list of trails to be prioritized for funding by the end of 2025. The Cheyenne sidewalk is one section that's needed for future connection to regional trails according to the OTO plan, and we are seeking a grant and preparing to go out for bid for that. So we would have sidewalks along the east side of Cheyenne. In progress, extending sidewalks from Route 14 along Truman Boulevard extension all the way down south to the dog park and Rosedale Road. Half that project is nearing completion, but we do not have funding in place yet for the other half to get all the way down to the dog park. That's a big chunk of coin that it's going to take to do that, and we don't know where that money is going to come from. Not started to create a trail fund within the Parks Department budget for creation of trails. Again, that's just due to lack of funding for parks. Hard to do that at this point. Also of note, additional funding needed to be able to build more trails. We'd like to do more. We have some ideas of where we'd like to do things. The funding has just got to be there before we can move forward, whether that's from a grant, a donation, tax funding, whatever the funding source may be. In order to expand and improve recreational spaces, the City of Nixa shall, Action Plan 8, develop new recreational spaces and renovate existing recreational spaces in accordance with the Parks Master Plan in order to meet the recreational demands of the community. There are 7 action steps assigned here. One is completed, is a master plan for the north parcel at the O Family Century Farm Park. That's been done and presented to council a few months ago. Also completed is the Macaulay Park Playground. We cut the ribbon on that recently, and we're very excited about that new inclusive playground. But keep in mind, that took a decade of savings to afford a single playground. At the rate that we're saving money, we're not going to do much, right? In progress, Rotary Park Playground equipment to be replaced this year. That's due to grant funding, so we're thankful for that. Budgeted, we have walking paths at Macaulay Park in the 2023 budget, and that's awaiting design. But again, that's, that's for design and then to be installed as well this year, right, Katie? Needs funding, the development of the, we need funding in order to develop the north parcel at Oak Park. We also need funding to design plans for the Rotary Park renovation. And we did attempt to get funding for an indoor sports complex idea, but that was rejected. In order to expand and improve recreational spaces, the City of Nixa shall, Action Plan 9, provide voters an opportunity to fund the addition of an indoor pool at the X Center. There's one action step assigned here, and that's not been started because we need funding before we can send something off to design. What would an indoor pool look like for us? It will cost money for us to get that kind of concept rendering done that we could propose to the community. So we've not put that on the ballot yet. Action Plan number 10, put forward at least one ballot issue which would provide voters an opportunity to fund expansion of the Parks Department facilities and or operations. So this is a little bit broader. It's not tied specifically to the indoor pool. It's just something, provide the opportunities, an opportunity to fund the parks, and we did that. We completed this action plan, action step by putting the ballot forward in November of last year, which failed, which again would have funded an indoor sports complex. Action Plan 11, implement 5 additional recreational sports programs. I'm sorry, and this is in order to expand the variety of recreational program opportunities. 3 action steps have been assigned. One's in progress, which is the Parks Department's kind of always looking and analyzing which sport programs have sufficient community demand and feasibility to be added to their programming schedule. And so far they've added 2. One is pickleball that was added in 2021 and adult co-ed volleyball, which is added in 2022. Also of note, we've only been able to add 2 of the 5 programs, and they're really feeling like they're stretched on their budget, and funding for facilities and staffing would be required to add more recreational sport programs. Action Plan number 12, implement new community activities aimed towards adults. So that was another thing that the planning committee really wanted to see was activities from the parks program, from the Parks Department, not just for kids, but for adults. And so we've done a little bit of that. Both of those programs that we just talked about, pickleball and adult co-ed volleyball, are really aimed at adults and have great adult participation. But again, we're kind of running the same issue where to add more adult programs, if you want to have a softball league, things like that, they're running up against budgetary issues and facility issues, facility limitations. In order to expand the variety of recreational program opportunities, the City of Nixa shall, action plan number 13, implement more community enrichment courses. There's one action step assigned, it's not been started, to explore and determine which enrichment courses have sufficient community demand and feasibility to be added to program and schedule. Funding for additional staff and space and possibly equipment would be needed in order to accomplish this. In order to expand the variety of recreational program opportunities, the City of Nixa shall create and implement an online platform for existing and new community classes. The first step there is to implement an online platform where we can offer virtual programming. Park staff did post some Facebook workout videos during the pandemic, but in order to kind of keep that momentum going, they're going to need more additional staffing and equipment in order to kind of to add that kind of virtual aspect to the in-person classes that they already have scheduled, right? So they're prioritizing having in-person fitness classes, and to have a digital version of that is going to require equipment and staff to broadcast those things. In order to expand the variety of recreational program opportunities, the City of Nixa shall, Action Plan 15, offer X-Center membership plans which include pool access. There are 0 action steps assigned here, and that's because there's a potential for revenue loss. So we discussed this at length with the Planning Committee, which had recommended that we do this, and there's concern that if we bundle an X-Center membership with a pool membership, that the Parks Department would lose further funding, further restricting their ability to spend on parks and recreation programs. In order to revitalize neighborhoods and business districts, the City of Nixa shall make investments each year towards downtown district for revitalization. 2 action steps were assigned. One is completed. The budget for the downtown master plan, we've budgeted for that in this year's budget, and we are in progress on hiring a consultant to develop that downtown master plan. So, Fun Unique Places, in summary, there are 16 action plans, one of which is fully completed and operational, but that's the one that said that we would put something on the ballot for parks, which failed. So it's the one thing that we can say that we've completed, we can still also hold in the failure column. We have 11 action plans which have seen progress, or staff are actively working behind the scenes on action steps to fulfill these goals. So we're making a lot of progress on these things. And there are 42 total action steps assigned to staff, 17 of which are in progress or budgeted for 2023, and 14 are completed or operational. Any questions about Fun and Unique Places and the progress we're making there? Hometown Spirit. This one's defined as we will engage, inform, and partner with residents, nonprofits, and businesses to foster a sense of unity and inclusion across our diverse and growing community, to preserve a shared sense of small-town pride and interconnection. We will invite participation in events, programs, and experiences which bring us together to enhance our quality of life. So, the first step on it there is, in order to make Nixa more welcoming to everyone, the City of Nixa shall, action plan number 1, develop and implement a marketing strategy that actively attracts and embraces diversity. There are 3 action steps assigned. We're in progress on 2 of those, so ensuring that our image sets on the website include images which portray diverse-looking people, and ensuring our image sets used in marketing and communications campaigns include some images which portray diversity to help increase representation and convey that we accept all people in our community, right? If everybody in all the photos looks the same, you might start to get the idea that that's the only kind of person that's welcome here, right? Also of note, we've conducted a photo contest in hopes of gathering more quality photos showing diversity. We did get a few from that contest, but we need to budget more out of the communications department for professional photography to gather sufficient local stock, as what we call that, local stock photography, to show the diversity that already exists in our community, right? Showing all the people, the faces that already are part of Nixa. In order to make Nixa more welcoming to everyone, the city shall, action plan number 2, implement at least 5 new diversity and inclusion initiatives. There are 6 action steps assigned here. 1 is completed. We implemented a non-discrimination policy in the personnel handbook to include sexual orientation and gender identity. Council approved that. Operational, we have researched possible diversity and inclusion initiative programs by consulting with local and regional organizations, and our Assistant City Administrator continues to do that. Also operational, we initiated the annual LEAD Multicultural event, which is held in the city park. And so we have our second annual coming up later this year. In progress, all city facilities are to be brought up to ADA compliance, and we're just chipping away at that bit by bit in every year's budget. We've got a list of improvements that need to be made to make sure that we do comply with the ADA in all of our buildings, and we're just working our way down that checklist. In order to make Nixa more welcoming to everyone, the City of Nixa shall, Action Plan 3, promote and host a roundtable discussion series with a diverse cross-section of community members to build relationships and address their needs within the community. There are 2 action steps assigned here, both of which are operational. So we hosted a discussion event series which was facilitated by our Assistant City Administrator. We call those the LEAD program, which stands for Listen, Encourage, Advocate, and Demonstrate. And also we presented the recommendations that came out of those LEAD discussions to the administration for consideration and implementation. So that resulted in the COCO with the community events and the Multicultural Festival. Those were 2 of those recommendations that came out of those discussions that we then presented to administration and then were implemented, right? In order to make Nixa more welcoming to everyone, the City of Nixa shall, Action Plan number 4, implement programs to welcome new Nixa Utilities customers, both residents and businesses. There are 2 action steps assigned, both of which are operational. One is to create a Welcome to Nixa email campaign sent monthly to new residents and new utility customers. That we didn't have that before, and so since 2021, actually when Macy started helping me out in the communications department, that was one of the first projects she got on, and now every month we compile a list of emails for people who are new to the community or who have just recently signed up for Nixa Utilities, and we send them a Welcome to Nixa email with a lot of links and information there about the community to kind of help them feel welcome and kind of get orientated to the resources that are available to them. And we also redesigned and updated the publication we call the New Resident Guide. You can find one of those out here in the lobby. That's designed now as a folder where you can stuff other information about the city. So the idea is, as we go through the different departments and we create new brochures for parks programs, police programs, the different processes to get building permits, things like that, then you can drop those brochures into this folder and you can kind of collect all the information you might need. A city map, for example, or maybe information from the Chamber of Commerce. It kind of becomes the housing document where you can put all this other information from this about the city. In order to offer events and festivities which bring everyone together, the City of Nixa shall, Action Plan 5, incorporate multicultural and inclusive aspects to existing events. There are 2 action steps assigned. One is completed, one is operational. So we did add the multicultural event to a movie in the park night. That was kind of a combined event. And we also added the Cocoa with the community to the mayor's tree lighting ceremony. So the effort there was to add these diversity efforts, the LEAD programs, into existing events that were already on the calendar, rather than kind of adding new things to the calendar. And in order to foster pride in our community, the City of Nixa shall, Action Plan 6. By 2025, the Communications Department should be creating community showcase videos on a monthly basis. There's 1 action step assigned. I've not started on that because this is going to require a full-time video producer to produce all the video content that we really want to be able to create. Just the bandwidth that Macy and I have in our department don't have the ability to produce that quality of video on that kind of frequency without having somebody else assisting. In order to foster pride in our community, the City of Nixa shall, Action Plan number 7, develop, implement, and market a unique and comprehensive community brand identity, which is not associated with any particular organization. So that's this design here. The silhouette is designed to be a visual representation of our community, which can be used by anybody. It's not necessarily owned by the city or the school district or the fire district or the Chamber of Commerce. Anybody can take that logo, slap it on a t-shirt, they can put it on a sign, they can show some pride in their community. But whereas this logo is the official logo of the city of Nixa as an organization, as a municipal government. And so you wouldn't want somebody going around the community wearing that on their shirt, because it might create confusion where you might think that somebody is an employee of the city when they're not, right? So that's why we kind of separated those things. So this is that graphic resource that we were talking about here. So that's in progress. It's been created, but we're still in the process of kind of implementing that throughout the community. And the branding, we plan to make that available on the city's website along with brand standards. And in order to foster pride in our community, the city of Nixa shall, Action Plan 8, add consistent and conforming welcome signs on all major thoroughfares. There are 3 action steps assigned. In progress, we have budgeted money in this year's budget for signs, but that's likely to be used for design and plan development because we have decided to partner with Ozark and Christian County to develop a consistent signage kind of look across the entire county. That process is yet to start, but that's the plan, is we're going to kind of work with them to make sure the wayfinding signage has kind of a consistent look and feel across the entire county, and then obviously we'll implement our own specific signage here within that system. So, summary of Hometown Spirit. There are 8 action plans, 3 of which are fully completed and operational. 4 have seen some progress, or staff are actively working behind the scenes on those action steps to fulfill those goals. There are 21 action steps assigned to staff, 6 are in progress or budgeted for this year, and 9 are completed or operational. Any questions about Hometown Spirit? All right. Well, that's my update. So we'll, unless you guys have specific direction on when you'd like to have a full update on the strategic plan for the community and invite the community to come back and talk to us about that, we'll just we'll try to kind of figure out what time seems appropriate, and we'll work on scheduling that.
Perfect. Thank you, Drew.
Thanks, Drew.
All right. Next up is Kristen from Show Me Christian County.
Hello. Thank you for letting me be here tonight. I apologize. Anna in our office is sick, and I'm struggling myself. So, but I wanted to come and still give an update. I think it's just allergies, so sorry for everybody sitting behind me. I believe that we sent over a quick summary of our study that we had done. This is a 131-page summary or study that we, I wanted to do a quick summary though. So this is 2 pages. To give a little background, the city of Ozark, the city of Nixa, and the Christian County government all collaborated to fund a hospitality feasibility study. We partnered with them to actually do the work with the group that went out and did the research, and that was Hunden Strategic Partners. And so we worked with them really closely in December and in January, and this study is actually just a snapshot of time. So even though we did talk about ATOS and 14 Mill Market, there wasn't a lot of information on what actually was going to happen whenever they opened, and so those were all projections. So even though we told them about them and they're in the study, a lot of those are not actually taken into consideration whenever they made their recommendation. The good news is we are ready for a hotel in this region. So especially in Nixa and Ozark, the 160 and the 65 corridors, the traffic studies show high enough counts that they did make a recommendation that we do need one. They're looking at the projections probably in that 2 to 5 year range where we need one. Probably in the next 5 years, we're going to need another one. They also went as far as saying that they believe that we have a 95 room capacity. Whenever they looked at the research, they were realizing that a lot of our hotel stays are going to Springfield. And some of them are also going to Branson. And so they looked at even the short-term rentals whenever they were doing the study as well. So they looked at a lot of different factors. It wasn't just what our current hotels are in the area, even though they did review and call and talk to them about their occupancy rates. They looked at the Springfield region. They called local business owners to find out how many rooms they were sending out. They talked to our school districts to find out how many rooms that they were having people stay into Springfield as well. So there was a lot of different factors that they took into consideration when making the recommendation. And they looked at 3 properties here in Nixa, 2 in Ozark, and they went over different classes and styles of hotels, and they gave us that mid-range hotel, so not the economy, which is more of like that Motel 6. We really have those already, and we're not quite there for the boutique luxury hotels that typically have restaurants in the basement or on the top of the roof, whatever. But they do believe that probably that second hotel will need that. And this is, again, about that snapshot in time. So if any of the factors change, what if one of our communities do get a sports complex, or they look at that Sunday through Thursday, number of rooms that are already being used as well. So it's also do we have a big employer that moves into the region? So there's other factors that could change that recommendation, but overall, they are saying we do need one. They are making a recommendation for an event space as well, that's divisible, but depending on funding, that's something that they said that it's not a requirement. We want the hotel first and foremost. So, and then they also went through and did a SWOT analysis. The only one I really want to point out is the opportunity for a lodging tax to fund the development. That's something that could be a countywide tax. And it is not for anybody who actually lives in the county. It's only if you have somebody that's actually staying in the hotel. So that is something that, moving forward, that might be something that we would want to consider doing. It's very standard for a hotel to have that. Right now, Christian County doesn't have enough hotel rooms to have that tax implemented, and that's why we haven't done that in the past. So that's just something that could be on the horizon if a development were to come up. And I also do want to share, that's not on here, is that we've already been in contact with at least six different developers, putting the study in their hands. So that's that next step of, after we've done the study, we don't want it to just sit on a shelf. We want it to be out there, making sure that people are aware that we are ready and that we do have potential sites and that we can accommodate it. So on our website, showmechristiancounty.com, is the full study, and I believe Jimmy had sent that out as well. So if you guys have any further questions or want to look over it, there is a lot of great information, a lot of statistics that they've pulled. I'm giving you a very quick summary. So do you guys have any questions at the time?
Do you know when the last hospitality study for the Springfield area was done?
I do not. I know that some individual developers have done them themselves. Branson, actually the group that we partnered with was Hunden. They had done a couple of studies in Springfield and in Branson, so they're very familiar with our area. So I don't know I don't know that.
Okay. The reason I ask is because I know that I'm pretty sure that they're telling Springfield that they need more hotels, but I feel like Nixa and Ozark, we're not really all that far away. I mean, I've played in basketball tournaments in Columbia where we had to stay in Jeff City.
Yeah.
And so it's not, I feel like we could also bank on that if
Yeah.
we need to, so.
And that was a big factor in all of this, is the number of people that are in businesses, schools, people that live here that are sending their families and staying in Springfield. That's where a lot of the need is coming from, is that we have it here, but they're just going outside of the city limits.
Yeah, and then I'll also add, Kristen,
Yeah.
if you don't mind, the Hunting Group also did evaluate both the Springfield and Branson area and the need for hotels in both, throughout Christian County to help provide lodging for some of the attractions both in Springfield and Branson. I know that Kristen and her team actually give them a tour of a lot of different attractions, both, like I said, in Springfield, from Wonders of Wildlife all the way down to Branson to Silver Lake City. So
Yeah.
they did take all those things into consideration as part of this study.
Yeah, and even the bike park in Highlandville, like they really looked at all of the drivers that people will be staying here. Why are they coming to here? It's not just because of one community, it's the region that they're coming here. It's the lakes, it's everything. So, and again, they really dove into that, into the study. So, thank you for that. Yeah. Are there any other questions? Great. I will be back hopefully in the next couple of months to give you an update on just what Show Me's been engaged with over the past year. We're doing a kind of a year recap, so we'll be doing that before long. So thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you. If you guys review that and have any questions, they're really quick at getting back. But just another thing, one of the reasons, because, we paid for a portion of that, one of the reasons that it's very important is I think it's kind of a weekly thing that I will screenshot a business concept or a new business idea and send it to Cindy and say, go for it. And she starts sending emails out to try to get those people to come to Nixa. And this is just another kind of piece of the arsenal that we'll have going forward to bring a lot of those in. So thank you very much. Okay, before we move on to the visitor section, just want to make sure everyone is aware, if you are going to be speaking on one of the agenda items, and I have a feeling there's a lot of people that are here for Council Bill 2023-30, there is a public hearing during that. So you won't speak during this visitor section, you'll speak during the public hearing just of that certain ordinance. So just want to give you a heads up. All right, we will move on to the visitor section.
Robert or Rhonda Mead.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Okay, I'm short. We weren't quite sure how to address it, but the reason we're here is because we have a very serious drainage area problem on our property, basically. It runs between our property and a neighbor. Because of the plain slopes of the streets, we get the water from the north side, the south side, and a 3rd Street coming in. We live at 406 North Ellen, so we get water from both sides of Ellen Street plus Briarwood. During any heavy rainfall, we end up with not a stream of water, but a major river, which then turns into a small lake in our backyard.
We back up to the parking lot of the First Baptist Church. They're doing work now, they're great neighbors. It could help us, what they're doing. It could make it worse for us with what they're doing. We'll find out in time how that works out, but I guess we're here for as much as anything. I have talked to the City Works Department, Public Works. Nobody has ever sat down with us to try to come up with a good permanent solution for it, but we've had stuff wash away alongside of our house before when the water comes. There's a cutout in the curb, basically. It's about 4 feet wide that goes about 10 feet back in concrete and then does nothing. So the water just goes where it wants to go from there. It has no direction. So we're here looking, we have never been to one of the meetings before. We thought we wanted to come and find out if there's any steps we can take, anybody we can talk to. We have good pictures that would really show the problem better.
We have video of what happens to the property during a rainstorm.
It's a concern for us too, because as we get older, and someday we will want to downsize, I'm sure, and sell. And if anybody was aware of that, we weren't aware of it when we bought the property. No one ever made it a point to us. We found out after we'd been living there a short period. We've been there 8.5 years now. It would definitely affect the value and the possibility of selling the house for all we could get out of it. So it's an issue. We're looking for help from the city. And again, listening to the other points that have been brought up here about Nixa wanting to be a friendly, a helpful city, welcoming city. We've been told it's not grandfathered in. We were part of the last old Wasson development. But we're a couple blocks over here. I figure that that's pretty much in the heart of the city. But yet we're told, no, you're in an old part and we can't help you. So we're just trying to figure out steps of what we should do, what we could do to get some help.
Is your neighbors the McKinneys? 7-foot tall guy?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I've actually been talking with him about this.
I was afraid of that.
No.
No, they're new neighbors. We
Yep.
don't know them that well yet and all. But yeah, I've always thought conversations and different things, you could solve problems and try to get it taken care of. But I know he had said he had talked to a few people on the council
Yep.
and all about it. His ideas and our ideas of a solution may be different, probably are, but again, our main concern is for our property. The majority of our equity we have, I would say, is in our house. And again, when and if we decide to ever sell it and all, and somebody saw what happens when the rains, when it's hard, it would definitely affect it. And that's our main bottom line concern. It's our home and all, and we just need to see what we can do is coming up with a solution. So we're here to ask for help.
Okay. I know we have been, because I had a couple people looking into this, and I know we had a stormwater engineer look at it, and I think we've taken our own pictures multiple times while it's raining. Is the church changing their parking lot? Are they addressing any of those issues? Do we know? I guess that maybe leans more towards Scott and not you, sorry.
Yeah, they are adding to their parking lot, but they are also addressing the on-site detention that's currently on their property, which I don't necessarily know if it would have changed the result for their property, but for everybody else that backs up to it, it could be beneficial. But where they are situated, I don't see that detention basin necessarily helping them.
And again, the church, when we lived there, been a year or two, there was an area back there with a natural flow of water on the lawn area. There had been some utility work done, we had been told in years past, and there was a considerable, pretty good hump out there that slowed the water flow down even more and made it worse for us. The church had a couple of members that had a backhoe and a dump truck. They were good enough to come in, took out a dump truck load of dirt there, and then put down seed. I watered it until the lawn came up and all, and I mean, that helped a lot. The church did that, and they to try to help us at that point. But now, I guess one reason we're here now and haven't been here before, they're doing that work. How it'll turn out, we don't know. But again, we're affected, considerably when there's any substantial amount of water. That cutout, I don't understand. It's just a cutout in the curb there, and it's dumped onto our property with no direction, no control, nothing to keep it, direct it in any certain direction. So.
Okay. Well, did they put all their contact info on there? Okay. I can't tell you I can give you a definite answer this week, but I will reach out to you by the end of the week. I'll get you the information that we have and kind of what it's hopefully going to look like going forward and see what we can work on.
Hey, we appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. If you wouldn't mind giving me your phone, or write your phone number down on there. You don't have to give it to the world right now.
You're almost done. Click the download button to continue.
Just download it. It's okay. Probably an email from me.
Get her 3D is what it was.
Oh, okay. All right, next up.
Ron Sanders.
Good evening. It's been a while, huh? My name's Ron Sanders, live at 976 Glen Oaks Drive. Y'all have heard that before, right? A couple of pearls of wisdom I'd like to share with everybody right from the get-go here. The golden rule, that's the first one. Treat everybody as you want to be treated. And the second one came up after I got home tonight. There's no such thing as too much bacon. So keep that in mind. I'd like to tell a little story, and it's not about bacon. It's about municipal government. It's a cautionary tale, so nobody get offended. I'm not making any accusations tonight. I'm just telling some people a little bit of history. There was a man, he was around 40 years old, and he moved to a town in Colorado, opened up a muffler shop, and wanted to do business. He was only there for a few years until he started running into some issues. A concrete factory was being built across the street, and at first he was trying to deal with the concrete factory, and the deal fell through, and he tried a few times to deal with them, and he wasn't very successful. But during this process, he was new to town, so he wasn't very well known, and he made enemies of the people that ran the town. And during this construction process, his muffler shop lost access for people to come to his shop. He lost a zoning war or planning and zoning vote or something like that. And in the process, the construction people screwed up the sewer system to his shop. And, things were just really going bad for him because this concrete place was going in across the street and everything. And the city, the people running the city really weren't showing him any favors or anything like that. They weren't really being nice to him. As a matter of fact, that construction problem that caused the problem with the sewer system, they fined him $2,500 for not having a sewer system to his shop, because the construction people with the cement factory screwed everything up. But they fined him. So things go on. He's looking at a pretty, desolate future here. And he's pushed to his limits. And unfortunately, when people are pushed to their limits, whether it's by government or by whoever, sometimes people do drastic things. And this man who had a muffler shop, he was a very good welder, had lots of steel, and he also had a Komatsu bulldozer. And he had a whole bunch of cement and everything, and he built a tank out of his bulldozer. And on June 4th, which was just last week, we commemorate, I think this is the 14th year that it goes around and everybody says, hey, happy Killdozer Day, even though he didn't kill anybody but himself. He did do a lot of damage. They call it Killdozer Day. He seeked his revenge on all of the people that he felt did him wrong in the city. He went and he destroyed the former mayor's house by running over it. He ran through the cement factory and destroyed a whole bunch of buildings. He destroyed City Hall, of course, and several of the other businesses and homes of the people that he felt did him wrong. And it's one of the cautionary tales in our history of small city governments. There's not very many of them. I looked, and there's not very many stories like that, which, considering we have probably like 20 or 30,000 city halls like this across our country. It's pretty incredible. But, in the end, he was never meant to come out of that bulldozer, and from here on out, it's known as Killdozer Day, and there's a lot of controversial stories behind that. There's the city's side, and then there's the, hero side, the man side, and everything. But what I wanted to get across is, when you're dealing with people, when you're exercising your power, when you're going through, and this is for everyone, when you're going through this process we call government, please make sure that you're being fair to everyone. Make sure that there is no favoritism, no nepotism, there's no backroom deals, everything is transparent. Because the only way that people can walk away and something unfavorable happen to them is if it was fair. And we have to make sure that everybody is treated equally and fair. So that's the cautionary tale for Killdozer Day, which was last week. And just one last thing, I know I didn't have any time. As the plans fail, the planners keep planning. I think some people know who said that. I just had to put that in there because there's a lot of plans that were shown tonight. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Jeff Belcher.
I'm Jeff Belcher. I live at 203 South Ellen Street, Nixa, Missouri. Howdy, folks. It's been a minute. Several new faces here. I think I met you once or twice before the day of reckoning came, and we finally got rid of the red-headed nemesis. So welcome to the new squad here. Hopefully I can stay away. I've been instructed I'm not allowed to talk about the fireworks ordinance, so I'm not going to do that. I will say, however, though, I sat through 40 minutes of the boringest, lame-ass lecture I heard, begging for money from the taxpayers that already voted no to the parks agenda. When are we going to get it, people? Give it up. You've got a wish list a mile long of golden dreams, but you don't have the funding. Back off. We're tired of hearing it. Fix what we've got. When is our pool going to be opened? The parks guy's gone. Is Matt gone?
I was going to say,
did I miss that much? Have I been that gone that long?
No, he's on vacation.
He's on vacation, okay. What's the deal with our pool?
We're doing that in here in a little bit, right? Okay, we'll get an update on that here.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I heard something on Facebook, well, it got a leak, they didn't know about it, they had no idea, didn't until they filled the pool up. Well, I'm no engineer by any means, but to me, a pool is a closed system of water transported by pipes. I see it on my jobs thousands of times a year. You pressure test it. Drain the pool in the wintertime, pump it full of your antifreeze, pump it with air, pressure test it, and guess what? Monitor that needle. When that needle drops, hey, we got a problem, Houston. Then you've got some time to prepare for it instead of, oh, a week before the pool opens, piss off everybody, you have no pool this year. And then another thing, Drew kind of bothered me with, troubled me to hear, was this whole diversity and inclusion, that anytime they have any kind of presentations, photo ops, whatever for the city, I believe he said something to the state that we need more people of color. It doesn't send the right image, a welcoming image, when we don't have enough people of color in those photos. What is he proposing by that? Do we have to hire people of color to be in our community? I mean, I'm looking here. He said it looks too white. We have a white community, majority of white people. Now, does that mean there's lynchings and beatings and mobs going, running everybody out of town? Absolutely not. I don't understand why, we can take a picture at the pool or the center or our sporting events for our kids, and it makes a Facebook page or something, and somebody would sit back and say, you know what, there's just not enough people of color there. I think people would, look at the picture and say, hey, look at all these people involved out there in their children's lives. What a community. That just struck a nerve with me as I came to my thought that there wasn't enough there's too many white people. And I think that's kind of a problem. That's what makes up the majority of our community. It's almost insulting. Hey, you're too white. We need to do something about this. If we're going to take a picture for any kind of city marketing or advancement or marketing anything, we need to do this and this and this and this. That's not an accurate representation. An accurate representation would be you take the picture of the event that you want to advertise and market and you run with it. Why doctor it up? That's fake. You know? We want to present an image. It's just like these sculptures. We want to present an image. We can't put a sculpture somewhere because they may move the building. Well, from what I've seen with the sculptures, it's basically 4 wedge bolts driven down into the sidewalk. It's not a big project to move. And it's a rusted piece of metal, the one I'm talking about up here at the park. Do people come to Nixa to go look at that piece of metal? I've got family that comes and visits all the time. I don't know that they've seen it, heard about it, know about it. But we're dumping money on that kind of stuff, painting our electric boxes. But we can't fund the parks that we have to be properly maintained. The flower gardens up there, the master gardeners, whatever, they're at Rotary Park. It looked like somebody was trying to get on it at one time, but they've quit, they've give up, it's overrun with weeds again. Let's take care of what we got before we start begging for more and scolding the citizens for voting no on a useless sports complex. We've spoke. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. And they actually just got finished redoing the park. You should go walk through it. I actually walked through it the other day. It's looking pretty good. I think the master gardeners took a break for a while. But it is looking a lot better, though. All right. Is that all? Okay. Oh, yeah, we used our pool employees that haven't been working also. They went over and power washed and picked weeds, and it is looking a lot better, though. But yeah, you're right. It did get pretty rough for a little bit. Okay, before we get moving on, the ordinance, I want to take a quick 5-minute break, let everyone stretch their legs, and we will be back in about 5 minutes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we heard you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to our ordinances. First is Council Bill 2023-27.
First reading Council Bill Number 2023-27, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Nixa, amending Chapter 2 of the Nixa City Code by repealing Section 2-150 and adding a new article thereto to establish regulations related to the city's procurement procedures and contract procedures. Presenting is City Attorney Nick Woodman.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. As Becca stated, I'm before you this evening to present on Council Bill 2023-27, which relates to the city's purchasing regulations and contracting requirements. And so, by way of introduction, this bill, as I've stated, is about the city's competitive procurement requirements. When we're talking about competitive procurement requirements, what we're referring to are competitive bids, requests for proposals, and requests for qualifications, the processes that the city goes through to let and award contracts. And so these processes serve several important policy objectives on behalf of the city. They help ensure that our taxpayer funds are used efficiently, ensures that the way that the city acquires goods and services is done in a transparent manner, helps avoid situations involving cronyism, graft, make sure transactions are done in a fair way, and also ensures that the city obtains a fair price through that competitive process. And so, like many cities in the state, the city has an adopted competitive procurement policy that achieves a number of these goals, but also has some drawbacks, some of those being that it's a little unclear on who's allowed to do what and when items need to be brought forward to the council for approval. And so the provisions of the bill tonight are offered to provide clarity on some of these questions. So to clarify on when contracts require discrete council approval. It's also designed to help create a more efficient procurement and contract authorization process. And importantly, in my view, the item in front of you is a council bill, an ordinance. The city's current adopted procurement regulations is adopted by resolution. And so if we adopt it by ordinance, that'll have the full force and effect of law, which has some advantages that we'll get into. And so getting into some of the specific provisions of the bill, as I've said, this would adopt the city's procurement regulations into the city code. Why is that something that we're recommending? Well, it provides more formality and more authority, making the provisions more enforceable. And generally speaking, when you're going to authorize durable authority, you want that in the local law, not by resolution. And so the provisions of the bill, they set out the broad approach, and then the city administrator, city staff is allowed to then execute that legislative grant. And so specifically what the bill is doing is it's granting authority to the city administrator to enter into contracts on behalf of the city if certain conditions have been met. Some of those conditions are that a competitive procurement process has been used, so either a competitive bid, request for proposal, request for qualification. The selected contractor is the most qualified of those that have submitted. That council has appropriated funds in the budget to cover that contract. And in cases of a public improvement, that the city council has included it in the most recent capital improvement program. And importantly, anything that doesn't fall within the provisions of the code or meet those buttons would require discrete council action. So one thing the bill does is it establishes 3 thresholds for the formality of the procurement process that's used. So we're talking bids, requests for proposals, requests for qualifications. And so depending on the contract amount, the amount of formality changes. It becomes more formal. So if we're considering a contract that's of $20,000 or more, the procurement process that must be utilized is a sealed competitive process that's publicly advertised and publicly opened. If we're looking at a contract that's between 5,000 to 20, then we just have to obtain, this is called an informal bid process. The city just has to acquire 3 sealed bids. There's no need to publicly advertise, but you have to have at least 3 contractors who can submit a bid. Otherwise, you have to go do the more formal 20,000 approach, even though it might not be in $20,000 in value. And then we have contracts for less than $5,000, which wouldn't require a competitive procurement process. And so these provisions would apply to the city's procurement of supplies, materials, equipment, and services. They could only be entered into for terms of 5 years or less. If it's over 5 years, that'll require council approval. And any contracts that are entered into under the provisions of this code have to be reported to the council at a regular meeting. And so, in addition to the competitive procurement regulations, the bill also codifies some important protections that are in the city's current purchasing regulations. However, this would place them in the city code, giving them more authority. These 2 protections are certification from the Director of Finance and approval of the city attorney. The Director of Finance, under the current purchasing provisions, is required to certify that there's an unencumbered balance in the budget to cover a contract. We're adding that as a requirement in the city code. It also requires the city attorney to approve contracts as to form. We're adding that into the code as well with this bill. Additionally, and related to the $5,000 threshold, to kind of help with the timing of grant applications, we're adding authority to the code for in situations where you have a non-matching grant opportunity that's $5,000 or less, the city administrator will be authorized to apply for those grants and accept those grants without formal council authorization. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions or seek any feedback from the council on this bill. Staff is recommending approval.
So on the part where anything over 5,000, you have to report to council, is that prior to or after it's done?
It would be after the fact.
Okay.
But, so this is, a lot of this is policy preference. There's multiple ways to go about this. So what we're presenting is just staff's best draft to start a dialogue with council on issues or items that you may be concerned about or want some additional homework done on, and we're more than happy to present any kind of requested amendments or address any concerns related to the bill. So if that's a concern.
That would be one concern, and like I'd stated before, my main concern is that, Mr. Lyles is very open with myself and council, and we know things well before they happen. But after he retires and someone else comes in, and what if that's not the case? That's my main concern.
Right.
Would be, we trust him, and I probably won't be around whenever, but if someone else has to deal with this and this is in place, and it makes it to where they don't have to tell the council until after it's been done. I mean, once it's already been done, it's been done.
Yeah, and you would have an avenue to address that at that time anyway. It would be to take it up with the administrator, who is your employee.
Yeah.
So it's not, I understand that, and like I said, this is all, policy preference.
Yeah.
So, and I have no preference. My concern with this is making sure that the procurement regulations are clear, so that we know what is expected of us as staff and know what needs to be presented to council. But that concern, it can be addressed a number of ways.
Okay. And I mean, I do support this because I know there's some processes and procedures that are in place that add additional time that in a lot of instances we don't have.
Yep.
And if this can fix that, that would be,
Yeah, and that,
everybody just clear their throat real quick.
sorry, I'm dealing with allergies too. just like
Kristen,
this.
you need to.
Sorry about that. You're exactly right, Mayor. That's one of the things we're trying to address with this policy is to make sure that we streamline some things to make them a little quicker. But I absolutely understand where your thoughts, and I will just add, though, that no purchases can ever be made that's not budgeted by this council.
Yep.
So those purchases are budgeted. If it's a CIP purchase, those are specifically approved by the council as well. So no purchases outside the budget can, that they're not budgeted can't be made. So, and the purpose behind trying to at least report those is just that. We want to be open and transparent with not just council, but the entire public about the purchases that we make as a governmental entity. So, and as Nick said, if there is any concerns about any of those purchases, then you obviously have avenues to take at that point if you feel.
Or
that's the matter.
legislate around the problem, you can modify the code, remove that authority. That transparency piece, I think, is quite important because it's not something we're currently doing, but that would be something going forward, that there would be a report on the agenda going forward of all the purchases made by the city in the last 30 days that exceed that $5,000 limit.
Yeah, currently we make those purchases now, and they never come to council currently. This is our avenue to try to take an extra step to make sure that council and the public is aware of those purchases.
And how many instances that have we had, sorry about that, where there's grant opportunities that we probably don't apply for because we don't have the time to bring them to council,
Yeah,
get
I think that's
approved?
more prevalent now probably than ever. It
Okay.
seems like we're getting a lot of grants with some deadlines that just we're not able to make. Some of these grants come out, especially as we saw through the ARPA funds and some of those, and even back when the CARES funding was available. Whenever these grant opportunities were coming up, they were putting such strict deadlines on them that we just couldn't get it to council for approval. So I know we've lost out on some of those in the past, and this, again, great point, Mayor. It's something that we're hoping to address with this.
Well, I feel like if you guys are doing the research and taking the time to find ways to save us money, we probably shouldn't stand in your way on that. So that's something I really like on this.
Two things I want to address is a little bit of the concern that you have with down the road. It does say that the Director of Finance and the City Attorney also have to have approval of this as well. So that's two other sets of eyes that are looking at it. So I feel comfortable with that. One of my concerns is that when we talk about not concerns, but questions, I guess, is on the non-matching on the grant authorization. If it's non-matching, why are we capping it at $5,000? I mean, if it's something that we can get 10, 15, or 20,000, why are we capping the non-matching ones?
That's a great question. So
I can understand if it's a matching one where we're gonna have to spend money, we should have to cap that. But if it's a non-matching, why are we capping that?
So that number was just picked because it coincides with the authorization of not requiring a competitive bid to enter into a contract. That's 5,000 as well under the provision. But if there's direction from council to raise that, lower it, we're obviously will yield to whatever council's desire is on that. But it was picked just to coincide with that authorization.
I can understand that if it was a matching grant where we had to pony up $5,000, but if it's a non-matching, then we're just trying to get free money.
I agree.
Yep, just asking for direction, what would be the number that you would be comfortable with? And we can definitely bring that back.
Well, if you're trying to get a grant, I don't know if we should set a number for that. I mean, a non-matching grant is free money, correct?
Typically, but sometimes there are other strings attached that we definitely, we evaluate that on every single grant that we look at before we apply. So there could be future requirements tied to those, things like that we were very cognizant of.
Yeah, I believe the higher the number, dollar amount, more strings would be attached,
Yes,
typically.
Correct, correct. And that's typically what you'll see. Yep.
I'd just be curious to see if we had an idea of how many were over 5,000 that we've done so far.
That's kind of like between now and maybe next week.
Yeah.
You think you could provide a couple examples?
The non-matching grants.
Oh,
How many-
grants, I'm sorry. Yes,
Yeah.
grants. Yeah, we can do that.
Just maybe a couple examples
get an
between now and
idea.
next
Over
week.
5,000?
That would be
Yeah.
over 5,000 that are
Yeah,
non-matching.
we can, we'll look back and see. What
So I really don't have a dollar figure.
I know.
behind it.
I'd just be pulling something out of my pocket.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else from council? Thank you,
And then-
Mr.
Thank you.
Roden.
Sorry, just for one more clarification, just
Yep.
for direction for staff, when we bring this back at the next meeting, to your point, Mayor, about the 5,000, do we want to look at that number on the purchases, or are we comfortable with moving forward where we're at?
Comfortable with that.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that.
Okay. All right, we'll bring that back.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, perfect, thank you. And we will open up the public hearing on this, if anyone would like to speak.
Ron Sanders, yeah. You were talking about can't think of words, contracts between $5,000 and $20,000 and some kind of oversight. Could there be a programmed into the process, a cooling off period of a few days where the contract would just be, or the city council would be notified of the contract? And it would give them 3 days to react and, maybe cause some kind of action to stop it before it took place, rather than to have a contract set in place and then you have to go back to them and say, oh, my city manager screwed up and now we can't do this, and you got to extract yourself. Is there some way to program something, a process like that, an emergency ripcord, And if there wasn't one of those in place, then maybe you could do that right now and turn the air conditioner contract on in the room and everything. So, but no, the idea of a cool-off period or something like that.
Okay.
It's something we can look at. I do have concerns because of public notifications and having meetings and doing city business. We have to have those publicly.
Yeah.
And as many contracts as we do between that dollar amount, I'm just not sure that's, honestly, I'm not sure it's practical. Yep. Or possible. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd have some concerns from a sunshine law perspective of authorizing any 3 members of council.
Because that would technically be a meeting.
Yeah, it could, especially if
It
you're
would have to be
exercising
announced.
some kind of government discretion. I mean, it's something we can explore and test, but
Okay. Yeah, we can look at it. Yes, please. We will keep the public hearing open while Mrs. Coffee turns the air conditioning a little bit cooler. We will close the public hearing. Anything else from council? And I will let you guys know, typically on a lot of those, Mr. Lyles runs a lot of those by me first. We're usually involved in a lot of them together during this discussions and stuff, so. All right, nothing else from council, we'll move on. Council Bill 2023-28.
First reading Council Bill Number 2023-28, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Nixa approving the preliminary plat of the Oakhurst subdivision, generally located in the 900 block of South Norton Road, and authorizing certain city officials to take certain actions upon the filing of a final plat. Presenting is Planning and Development Director Scott Goppy.
Mayor, council, good evening. This is for a preliminary plat for a subdivision named Oakhurst. It may sound familiar to some of you as it was originally annexed, zoned, and platted, preliminary platted in 2018. They have since gone back and redesigned the subdivision slightly, so I'm keeping the presentation theme going here tonight, so I wanted to provide some visual aids for you. You can see that there are 3 different zoning districts going to be on the proposed preliminary plat. Those zoning districts are currently in place and is not up for debate or anything right now. So again, this is the proposed layout. You can see that it's pretty much surrounded by a single-family zoning. It is the Forest Park subdivision to the north. It would be the Meadowbrook subdivision to the east. And I apologize, I don't remember what is to the west, but it is a single-family subdivision. This is the proposed preliminary plat. It is very similar to the original from 2018. The only difference is that there's now a connecting road rather than where a cul-de-sac was before, and they have shrunk some of the lots, which are still above our minimum single-family lot standards. You can see Phase 4 is the multifamily. Phase 5 down in the southwest corner is the neighborhood commercial project or zoning. You'll see that road that is associated with Phase 5 is part of the Inman Road Extension Project. That is also only in Phase 5. So whenever that neighborhood commercial property will develop, if the city hasn't already done this portion of the Inman Road Extension, it would be on the developer at that time to do that. They do have 2 access points onto Norton Road. A traffic impact study will be required at the time of development due to Norton Road being a collector level street. If for some reason Phase 4, the multifamily phase, were to develop anytime in the near future, Gregg Road is a secondary arterial. It will require a traffic impact study as well at its point of contact or point of access onto Gregg. Let's see. So this current phase, or current preliminary plat offers 155 single-family lots. They all meet the minimum lot standard, which is currently 6,600 square feet. They are proposed to have 4 common area lots, which will be dedicated to a homeowners association. All these lots will be served by municipal services, so that's water, sewer, and electric. And the first 3 phases are all part of the single-family subdivision. So a public hearing was held at the June 5th Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. No citizens approached the commission during the meeting, and the commission voted unanimously to recommend approval. Staff has reviewed the document, and it is in conformance with major subdivision standards and recommends approval. If you have any questions, I'm available.
This is kind of a random question. Do you know how much acreage is available in Phase 4 that's actually usable? Like 3 acres? It's a lot of sinkholes.
Yeah, available for development is different than total land. But yeah, there is quite a bit of sinkholes associated with this property. There was a recent sinkhole evaluation done earlier this year, so the current sinkhole evaluation does conform with our new standards, so they would not be required to have a new one.
Okay. Thank you.
It's a roundabout way to not answer that question.
Yeah, you did a good job. You're learning. Any questions from council? Thank you, Mr. Gabi.
Thank you.
We will open up the public hearing on this, if anyone would like to speak.
Mayor, Council, my name is Stu Stinger, 5051 South National, Springfield, Missouri. I'm the developer of the proposed Oakhurst development, and it's less than half, by the way.
Kind of figured.
It's tricky. That's probably why we're going to do it last. I'd answer any of your questions. Scott summed it up very well. It's pretty much the same layout. We connected one street. We shrank some of the lots. We're going to put a pool and play area up front in some of those common areas along Norton. Other than that, it's pretty much what got approved in 2018. So just want to introduce myself to the new members and answer any questions.
I think we're good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stinger.
Mr. Stinger, I'm sorry, I do have a question. It says high-density multifamily R3. What are you expressly talking about when you say high-density multifamily?
So that's just the zoning classification we went for, which is allowed in Nixa. We don't have any current building plans right now for the R3. We're just doing the R1 right now.
Yeah, I'm just curious in the future, because we have some people here to address something like this in the future, whether it's going to be 3-story apartments, whether it's going to be townhouses, whether it's going to be duplexes.
Under that ordinance, it could be any of them. It could be 55 and older, it could be 3-story apartments. We just do not have a plan for those yet.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sally Sullivan, 889 West Chestnut Bend Circle, Mayor and Council. I'm here for item 4, but I do have a question about this relating to infrastructure. Is there room in the infrastructure for this project? That's my question.
Can you repeat that and talk
Is
a little
there
closer to
room
the
in
mic?
the
Is
infrastructure?
there infrastructure, sewer, water, et cetera?
I believe yes.
Yes.
We have everything in place to support this neighborhood.
Thank you.
Mhm. Anybody else? All right. I will close the public hearing. Anything else from council? All right. We'll move forward to Council Bill 2023-29.
First reading Council Bill Number 2023-29, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Nixa amending the 2023 annual budget to appropriate funds for design work to City Hall. Presenting is City Administrator Jimmy Laus.
Mayor, Council, with the passage of the general fund sales tax that's going to be dedicated to public safety, we are in the process, as you'll see later tonight, we're going to discuss hiring additional officers. But the other thing that we told the public that we're going to do is build a new police department. So we're starting the planning phases for all of that now. But before we can actually start to even thinking about building a new police department, we have to make room for it. So the first step is to get utility billing moved over into City Hall. If you remember, the original concept is to demolish the old utility building. That's really hard to say, by the way. And to demolish that is, as we've talked about before, it's got a lot of leaking issues in the basement and things like that. It just makes sense that it's time for it to come down. And that'll make room for the new police department. So to be able to do that, we have to be able to remodel part of City Hall to accomplish the space that we need, or to accommodate the space that we need for the utility billing department to move over here. So what we've done is went out to our architect that we do have on under contract, Idea Design, and they did give us a 2 packages and then in a quote that we received from them. The package 1 is to be able to remodel that one area where we're looking at utility billing to go, and it's about, I think it's, I apologize, I think it's 3,700 square feet, give or take, somewhere around there. That would accommodate that move over here. But along with that, I did ask them to look at the rest of City Hall, again, as we like to plan for the future here, and try to do as much as we can. Planning-wise, at one time, it made sense to at least take a look at the other parts of City Hall that are not as efficient, and to also provide a better work environment for some of our employees and additional workspace. As we know, we need additional offices and things of that nature. So they did offer 2 packages. The first one is just that one little area to accommodate that. The second one is to look at the rest of City Hall as well, so they can do that all at one time, which would again save us money in that design work or the architecture work, to see what that type of remodel would look like. That entire thing would include, things like smoking areas outside that we don't have for our current employees, additional offices, to also include some areas like for communications that we need and things like that. So I did ask them to look at both of those, and so they did come back with the 2 package price. The package 1 is $18,750 to do that design work, and the second is $41,500 for a total of $60,250 to do that evaluation and architecture work. And that is including everything on the design. That's all mechanical, electrical, the whole works. That would be ready to build. And then, of course, at that time, we can decide, next year's budget, what we want to try to accomplish or what we want to take on. But again, for now, I'm asking for a budget amendment to get that design work done so that we have that done in time for the budget time. So when we start the city's budget, we can actually evaluate what we can afford to do as far as the work over here goes in next year's budget. So it is my recommendation for approval of the budget amendment for $60,250. I would recommend utilizing ARPA funds that we do have set aside currently, so that therefore that would be obviously affordable as well. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Have any questions? And if you do have questions, we'd be more than willing to show you all the wasted space inside this building. It's
quite amazing
kind
how
of
much
outrageous.
wasted space
Yeah.
we have. It really is.
Yeah. Okay. No more questions. We will open up the public hearing. If anyone would like to speak on this. We will close the public hearing. Anything else from council? All right. The much anticipated. Moving on to Council Bill 2023-30.
First reading Council Bill Number 2023-30, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Nixa amending the Woodfield Villas Planned Unit Development Overlay Zoning District, generally located in the 400 block of South Truman Boulevard, by incorporating approximately 3.59 acres of additional real property into said planned unit development. Presenting is Planning and Development Director Scott Gobby.
Mayor, Council, good evening. Again, visual aids are great. This is for basically the extension of a planned unit development that is currently approved, and also amendments to that document that govern development on that property. So this is a planned unit development, residential, PUDR. The underlying zoning of the two lots in question is high-density multifamily R3 zoning district. Again, they are just requesting to extend the boundaries of their current overlay, which is the PUD, to cover the adjacent roughly 3.5 acres to the east of it. And also, at that time, we also cleaned up a lot of the language that was in the existing PUD that was approved in 2008. You can see the area in question. It is the highlighted area, not the other hash area, which is the Garden of Woodfield. So you can see the proposed development will include basically apartment-style buildings, so it is the land use is in conformance with the area and the underlying zoning district. So here's some information. The original Woodfield Villas PUD was approved in 2008. It only covered Lot 50 of Woodfield. That property owner has since purchased the roughly 3.5 acres to the east of it. The original PUD included 2 3-story buildings with 24 dwelling units per building. It was also proposed to be a 55 and up in the PUD document. So again, we are now trying to extend that over to the adjacent lot. The adjacent lot was rezoned from R1 to R3 in April of 2019. Where this property does intersect with Truman Boulevard, it will be required for a traffic impact study, as Truman is currently classified as a collector level street. What you're looking at right now is the proposed site plan. I'll go back to that in a second. The developer is proposing 81 dwelling units across the 2 lots. You can see the math for the total acreage is possible density is 96 possible dwelling units. They are proposing 81, and it's going to be spread across the 2 lots, but a majority of it will be on Lot 50. But the overall density covers across the 2 lots, so therefore it's not increasing density overall throughout the development. It's actually going to be a little less as to what could be possible. So when looking at the PUD document, we like to see what is different versus the overall, or the underlying zoning district, that is the city standards on that zoning. So they are requesting a change in the building setbacks. So current R3 setbacks is front yard is 20, rear is 12, side is 8. Their proposed setbacks is actually going to be increasing the front setback to 25 feet from Truman, and then along the perimeter, the north and east will be a 20-foot setback. The other request that they are looking to keep from the original PUD document is the 55-foot max building height. Currently, the R3 zoning district has a max of 35 feet. The Nixa Fire Protection District does have the ability to provide life safety services to a structure of this height. And also, when you go above a certain, I think above 2 stories, it kicks in a whole different building code classification that they also have to comply with. So it will be, any structure will also be reviewed for building code compliance. So again, this is the proposed layout that is part of the PUD document. The large football shape item in the northeast corner is a known sinkhole that has been evaluated. It will be required to have a new evaluation, as we have recently changed our sinkhole and stormwater regulations in 2022. This evaluation, I believe, was done in 2017. They are proposing 3 access points onto Truman. 9 buildings with 9 dwelling units per building, so it's going to look a little different than the typical apartment-style buildings that we do see, or what was previously approved in the original PUD document. So let me see if I missed anything. The subject property does have immediate access to municipal water, wastewater, and electric services, and those are all sufficiently sized and have the capacity to serve the proposed development. The stormwater management plan for this, they will have to do the new sinkhole evaluation, which will determine the flooding elevation within the sinkhole, and then from that flooding elevation stage is where a 25-foot setback will be measured from. Obviously, they can't build in the sinkhole without other provisions, but if that were to happen. But so most likely that 25 feet from the flooding elevation will extend outside of the rim. So there could be a slight shuffling of some buildings, turning them a little bit to conform with whatever the new evaluation provides. So a public hearing was held at the June 5th Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Citizens in the adjacent area did approach the commission to express concerns about potential traffic issues, flooding issues associated with the sinkhole, and also aesthetics of the development. With all things considered, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted 5-1 to recommend approval to Nixa City Council. Staff has reviewed the Woodfield Villas PUDR and finds it to be in substantial conformance with the PUD requirements, and staff does recommend approval.
I have some questions.
Sure.
I actually was at the planning and zoning meeting the other night when this was brought up, and there was a lot of concerns. A few things that I want to ask is, first of all, the building plan that we're looking at right here, that had been previously proposed, kind of this layout before, is that correct?
No, the previous proposal that was in the approved 2008 version featured just 2 buildings with 24 dwelling units each.
Okay.
So it was the typical apartment-looking buildings, and 2 of those on site.
So there have been a total of 48 at that point in time?
Correct.
Okay. And then, so both these lots are already currently zoned R3 for the multifamily.
Correct.
So what you're asking tonight is that we're only to approve, or not tonight, but the ordinance is to approve the PUDR, which is the overlay that kind of controls or kind of sets forth the guidelines for this build, correct?
That is correct, yeah, to extend
and
it
so-
onto the adjacent lot.
And so that PUDR is actually moving some of the setbacks further away than what our current code is, right?
Correct.
Okay. And then the other things they're asking for is that they're eliminating the 55-plus age requirement with this. Is that correct?
Correct. So with that, they are eliminating the restriction in the PUD document that it has to be. Now, the underlying zoning will still allow for that if that's proposed for the
Sure.
development.
And then
That-
basically, they're saying that, hey, we originally planned this, but now we're going to pull that out and may or may not do that.
Correct. It would be at
'Cause
their
they can-
discretion.
Sure. Okay. And then they're looking to go to 81, from 48 to 81 units. Is that correct?
Correct, across the 2 lots.
Across the 2 lots. Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
What was the reasoning behind the 1 no vote with the P and Z Commission?
Councilmember Lucas, correct me if I'm wrong, but the P and Z commissioner that voted no had no issues with the extension of the PUD onto the adjacent lot, but they expressed concerns about not knowing or having an approved stormwater plan connected to the sinkhole. Again, that would be something that would be approved by staff after they get the go-ahead to continue development, or continue down this process of developing.
Water-related.
Thank you.
Was that accurate, Mr. Lucas? Okay.
Absolutely. That was definitely accurate.
Okay.
So you say that it's a typical apartment complex. I guess I'm not sure what you mean by a typical apartment complex.
The original approval from 2008 included two apartment buildings with 24 dwelling units each, which would be 8 dwelling units per floor. If you look just north of this development, or just south across the road here, That is what I'm referring to as a typical apartment complex. It has the 8 per floor, basically, and then goes up. This is a little different than what we would normally see.
Is it kind of more along the lines of like over on Tracker and?
Tracker in Maine?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are these 2-story or 3-story?
These are proposed to
That they
be.
first proposed,
It's proposed to be 3 stories.
at the original? No, the
The original,
current.
yeah, the original was also proposed to be 3 stories, and this is also proposed to be 3
Be
stories.
3 with 3 per floor.
Correct, which is, again, different than what we normally
Yeah.
would see.
That's pretty small.
Smaller buildings.
Yep.
Not small.
Okay.
So in the proposed issue, it says it asking for 96 units, which is more than 20% that's for allowed density. How are they going to address that? It's over the allowed density.
I couldn't hear you.
A little closer to the mic.
It says the proposed thing says it's 96 units, which is more than 20% for the allowed density. How are they going to address that? If it's over what's allowed?
So 96 is the actual, what is allowed for the 2 lots combined. They're only proposing to do 81 dwelling units, which is under.
I'm just looking at this, and that's what it says on it.
I apologize, I can't zoom in on that.
That was in that packet that was just handed to us, along with the current.
Yeah, this is what was given to you. This wasn't from Scott.
Okay, sorry. This is not from you, Scott. Sorry to throw that at you. This is something that some of the residents gave us.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
And that's, I believe that is listed actually on page, if you go to page 9 of this, which is the plat, and if you go to the right side of it, it'll show,
It's not letting me go to page 9.
it'll show the total units, total parking spaces. Under the proposed PUD requirement summary.
I'm scrolling.
Almost there. Keep
Under
going.
this one.
Last page.
Yeah, it says they'll have 122 parking spaces, 9 buildings total. It'll also have a shared clubhouse and pool.
It's on the attachment.
It says
There you go.
dwelling density is 81 dwelling units.
There you go.
Thank you.
So that shows what's existing versus what's proposed.
The existing is, the previous plan was 48 units and 71 spots.
So we're going up quite a bit.
Yeah.
It's more land now.
Yeah.
So what they're proposing is almost double what we have already given them. It's current.
But
Correct, and it-
they've added another lot to
But there's
this.
also a second
Yes,
lot.
I know,
Yeah.
but still.
With the concern that was mentioned at the planning and zoning as far as the water and stuff like that, can you kind of explain that, how that water is diverted and the filtration process and the stuff that goes along with the water, stormwater?
Right, so part of the code amendment we did in 2022 was to improve the water quality that goes into the sinkhole. And by, basically that means adding a water quality basin before it goes into the sinkhole. Old regulations allowed you to collect the stormwater directly off of the street or parking lot surfaces and pipe it directly into the sinkhole before it hits any type of natural surface. So we are interested in protecting the water quality within the sinkhole because it may not have the same filtering capacity as a normal field. So therefore, we got to protect it going into it. So the water quality basin is basically just a little basin of natural grass, something that will allow it to naturally filter itself before it goes into the sinkhole. And it also addressed, on a sinkhole that is extended onto multiple properties, it also addressed how much a proposed development can raise that water level within the sinkhole, that flooding elevation within the sinkhole.
And by doing that, it helps slow down the rate that the water goes into the sinkhole as well.
Correct, yeah.
So has the city done any kind of a research on how the water's going to move from that position in those new buildings? If it's going to go into the sinkhole without any problem, or if there's going to be a water problem still, or worse, or anything? Because according to some of the residents we've talked to, the water problem is not good to begin with.
The stormwater, the sinkhole is the lowest point in this area, and that is where this property drains to, is the sinkhole that is on this property. I know at P&Z we were talking about a property adjacent to this one. But yes, we will require the developer to provide a new sinkhole evaluation to determine the flooding elevation, the extent of the rim, and overall evaluate the sinkhole for if it's capable to provide it for detention. And then they will also provide stormwater calculations of what is going into the sinkhole to make sure it doesn't raise that level that is provided in our code.
Well, from what some of the residents that I've talked to have mentioned, that there's a water problem already with water runoff into that sinkhole, that it backs up and goes through their yards.
There is a possibility that extends, you can see the extent of it on this property. Now, the surrounding property known as the Hedge Path Addition, and then also the duplexes to the north, there is no drainage easement or signs of the sinkhole on those plats, as they were platted well before we had sinkhole regulations in place. So it does extend onto those properties. I'd be willing to bet that any place that stormwater goes or raises into that sinkhole, it will probably fall within that 100-year flooding elevation that will be provided in the new evaluation, and therefore should be in a drainage easement if it would have been provided, or if these other subdivision would have been provided here recently. So yeah, there should be a drainage easement there. It is a possibility for this developer to go off-site and acquire those drainage easements, but if they cannot acquire them, then there's other provisions in our code that they will have to follow.
Okay, one more question. Has this developer given us anything to show how he might try to provide some privacy for the people that live in that area, that have houses there that these apartments are going to overlook? Because they're very concerned about that.
So they have increased their setbacks from those adjacent property owners. We do have a screening requirement in place in our current code that they will have to comply with. It would mainly affect the property owners to the east, but again, there is also the remnants of a 60-foot utility easement through there for KMO Electric, I believe, has those power lines. So there's already existing vegetation there, but they will have to provide opaque screening between the two different zoning districts, which would be R1 and this PUD. And then the vegetation that is within the sinkhole, they are not allowed to remove any of that, so that provides another good buffer.
When they talk about screening, how tall are you talking about a screening issue between
So it's
these?
opaque from 0 to 6 feet, which is usually achieved by a privacy fence, and then from 6 feet to 20 feet, it's intermittent screening, which is usually achieved by treetops. So there'll
That
be,
are already there that they would provide?
they will provide if they're not currently there. But again, you have an overhead electric line there, so they would have to provide those a little bit outside of that easement. So therefore, they wouldn't interfere with those overhead transmission lines.
Okay.
Anything else from council?
One more thing. So you said they're proposing to move it to 55 feet? Is that what we're understanding?
The existing PUD has it as 55 feet, so they could develop Lot 50 of Woodfield with a 55-foot high building. They are proposing to keep that into this new development, yes.
Okay, and then the screening in the trees would be at 21 feet? Is it, or am I not understanding
20
that?
feet, yeah, correct.
20,
That would be
okay.
based off current code, yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure I had that correct in my head.
Anything else? Thank you, Mr. Godby.
Thank you.
All right, we will open up the public hearing on this matter.
I'll go first. All right, I'm Nathan Adams. I'm with OWN, formerly Anderson Engineering. My address is 3213 Southwest Bypass, Springfield, Missouri. So I'll just give you a little bit of a picture for what the developer is trying to do with this development. So the previous development was more of a typical larger building apartment complex, only on the northwest portion there. So the developer is basically trying to utilize the additional space on the southwest portion to create more of an overall development, and he really wants it to look more like homes. So they're smaller buildings, obviously they're taller than a typical home, but they'll have hardy plank siding with asphalt shingle roofs with brick accents. So that's kind of what he's going for. Break up those large buildings and create smaller pods. He's going to be developing it in phases, so he's not going to put all 81 out there all at once. He's going to develop it in phases over time. He plans on doing all of the drainage requirements required by the city to make sure that we're meeting the city requirements for not creating additional flooding downstream. We're going to be doing all of the traffic studies required and analyzing to make sure that we're not causing additional traffic problems based on development coming in. So we're trying to do everything that we can to make this a nice community for the area. And I'm open to any questions, and I'll stick around if there are any other questions that come up.
Any questions? Thank you very much, Mr. Adam.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Pam Shaver. I live at 401 South Bryant Street, which is right behind that big sinkhole there that you can see on the map. And I have to say, like a lot of our neighbors, we've been rather concerned about this proposed subdivision. My husband did go to Mr. Godsby, and he gave us a lot of answers in reference to what would happen to the water. Our initial concern was that with all these parking lots, there would be an enormous amount of runoff into this sinkhole. And we have emailed some pictures to our city council members, Ms. Graham and Ms. Morris, over the last 9.5 years that we have lived at our residence. That sinkhole has flooded numerous times, and we have had water at least 4 to 5 feet up into our yard. That entire sinkhole has filled with water, and we made Mr. Godsby aware of this, but there is an huge electrical box. I don't know what the technical term is for it, but it's very close to where the water has progressed during this flooding. So I'm really glad to hear that a lot of our concerns have been addressed this evening. We did have a few other questions. We don't see any kind of retention basin in this proposed plat. Is that something that will take place after the stormwater study? Or after the study of the sinkhole?
Correct, and after the approval of this extension as well, they will continue with their construction design, which would include additional stormwater facilities.
Okay. But it sounds like there will still be water draining into the sinkhole. Is that correct? Yeah. All right. And you have said that the construction has to be a certain number of feet away from the sinkhole, correct?
Yes.
All right. Has there been any provision for sediment and erosion control measures, or will those come along with the sinkhole study? They will. Okay. My last question doesn't have anything to do with sinkholes. We have been wondering if there are any noise control guidelines in place for commercial construction adjacent to single-family dwellings?
There are some in place, and
Okay.
we fight with that often.
Okay.
So it's if they start before they're supposed to, what's the start time?
7 a.m.
It's 7 to 7.
Yeah.
So
7 to 7?
Yeah. So
Okay.
if they do start, call up to
Call the police.
City Hall and let us know.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much. Thank you for all your help.
Thank you.
What are you doing here? I'm Lauren Gist. I live at 880 Heather Glen, so I'm on the west side of this, and I was close enough to be like notified by the certified mail of that. So I brought a little packet here. We can skip through the front too, because I'm like, I feel confident in this first one, and I had looked through the strategic vision that I love as well, and the reliable infrastructure, and that's where I was kind of getting concerned. So we'll pass through the visitor guide too. I kind of did a really terrible just layout of the land of what it looks like right now. I wish I could show everybody there, but, so this is the one that I'm looking at. So you have 8 buildings, 2-story apartments that are right off of 14. Then the next ones back are 6 buildings, 2-story apartments. Then the next one back there's 11 1-story duplexes. I realize the current zoning is for 3 stories. We can't change any of that. That brings me to, I kind of did the original Woodfield plat with the, what currently, this is what I got off of Nixa's website, what it's currently zoned for. And then the proposed as well, which was the one that's up there. So then the proposal is 9 3-story apartments with 3 entrances. So I also kind of marked like how many entrances. The Truman Road just is getting open, that is a collector road that is, I feel like we're playing catch up with trying to, that's going to alleviate some traffic issues in other areas, and that's just getting completed, so we really don't know like any plans on what that's on how much this is going to affect. So anyway, I will go to just my like bullet points of this. So we have a sinkhole also south of us that's a huge sinkhole, and then there's 2 sinkholes within that. Really, I don't think the drainage will affect over there. I know we're already having we have drainage issues anyway, just from street runoff, so possibly because, whatever's being built though will kind of go into the street as well. There is stormwater collection, but even in the last rains, it's still flooding. So major concerns with that, and sinkholes being so prevalent around there, like large ones. So if you look at the current with the proposed, kind of together, there's 2 buildings, and I realize this is lot 50. So first of all, this is like Woodfield HOA. So we have a whole HOA. I can't have chickens, I can't it's very strict with like all sorts of stuff. And I'm like just the second house over on Heather Glen there, but then it's frustrating because then I like see that this big change can happen. Which the original, there's 2 buildings. If you look and take note of how they're even positioned is a huge thing. They're not, my neighbor on the end, it lived in 15 years here in Nixa, taught at Nixa schools. She's moving Nixa and so frustrated because she feels like she's not protected. I mean, her bedroom window will look out to the pool right there, and apartment buildings 3 stories high. So I feel like the positioning of this plan was very respectful of both current and future, because I know it's already zoned. I know like that, I'm not against like apartments necessarily going in there if it fits with the Woodfield neighborhood, since it is like, it was platted for that. I feel like I don't know, and looking, I didn't have copies of it, but hopefully the current Woodfield, this is on the website with the proposed. Most of it's like kind of copy and pasted, and there's a lot of discrepancies through there that I just implore you to kind of compare those if you can. I did hit some of the bullet points that I wrote down on there. The first one was already a 7% increase from the, like when they did the current, it was a 7% for allowed density. This one in the proposal, it stated in there that it was more than 20% for allowed density. So I guess I'm just looking at preserving what's there, as far as like, you know, even like the noise and the traffic and all that came up there. But, so just looking at the current and the proposed, especially just the layouts, the current had the tree planting and it had it in a way that was very respectful to the surrounding areas. So I guess that's all my time there.
Thank you.
Any questions for me or?
Any questions?
No. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sally Sullivan, 889 West Chestnut Bend Circle. I am here to talk about this proposed zoning change. I was at the Planning and Zoning meeting. The specific question regarding the water was, does it flow down Truman towards Gardens of Woodfield Park? Yesterday it rained. The water flows into the park from the property that we're talking about. Surprise! I'm so shocked, because I was told that it would go northeast. Lived there for 2 years. I know which way the water flows. Members, Mayor, and members of the council, thank you for having us tonight. I've lived here for 2 years. I purchased my home because it looked like a great place to be near my family and retire. I spent the last 2 days talking to my neighbors. There are 43 homes in the Woodfield Estates addition. 56% of the people answered my survey. There's a few that are not on your sheets that have handed their surveys in tonight. They are against this project. Over half of the residents that we talked to are not in favor of this. The stormwater runoff is an ongoing issue. Almost everyone that has come to talk from the public tonight has talked about stormwater runoff. Is this something that the Nixa City Council will address at some point? I'm not an engineer or geologist. I'm just a regular person who has observed this over the years. The engineers said that the water will not run in, it'll run to the northeast side, not down towards Truman, but I think that we can see that it does. Just go over there and visit when it rains. I did not want to have the developer pay a fine and not deal with stormwater like they did at the last zoning commission, where the developer was allowed to pay a $10,000 fine to not handle stormwater issues. I do not want that for my property and increase the flooding in my backyard. My request for the council is to perform a stormwater assessment for the entire neighborhood and figure out what's going on with water before we add additional impervious surfaces that will increase drainage into my property and my neighbor's property and make huge problems with sinkholes. There was just a hole in the sinkhole at Gardens of Woodfield a few weeks ago. Another issue I have is the traffic on Dustin and Truman. It's an understatement that it's a raceway. If you've ever tried to back out of a driveway on Dustin, it's impossible at some times of the day. If you ever walk your dog and get chased by a loose pit bull and have nowhere to go because there are cars parked on both sides of Dustin, and the driveways are blocked, you can't go on the sidewalk, where do you go? Into the yard with the pit bull? Call the police? I'm open. I've done it twice and survived. There's a lot of issues. I think you guys really I hope you appreciate the information that we're providing to you, because this area is already extremely busy. So my request for the council is to do a traffic study now, before the Truman is complete, and then do a traffic study as school starts, and look at the kids driving to school on their cell phones, going at least 45 to 50 miles an hour, weaving in through cars. Also, I am concerned about parking and security for residents that are in the area. Where will additional cars go? There will be over 122 people there, but we'll have 122 parking spots. Is overflow parking designated for Truman, the park? What's the plan? I'm just curious. And finally, transparency. Since I heard about this project at the beginning of June, I'm shocked at how much work I have personally done to figure out what's going on. I don't expect the city to hand me things, but I did a survey on my own in 6 hours' time, and you have the results now. If you have any questions about that, please let me know. I'm happy to share anything with you. Because there's no zoning sign on the property, as I talked to neighbors, most of them were shocked that something was even going in. I understand the city code does not require it, however, it is highly suggested. In this case, that would have been a good thing, so that everyone knew what was going on in their neighborhood, because the sign was not put up. I was the one that told them. Also, my neighbor Barb was the one that informed people of a 3-story apartment complex going in. There's limited additional info on the website, it's just not there. This is more than just clearing up the language of the PUD that was there. We're adding substantial changes to it, and major changes. So in closing, I would just like to ask yourself, do you want this in your neighborhood? And if you do, then I wish you the best, and I hope that our neighborhood works this out and we can come to some sort of understanding that we do not want this in our neighborhood because of the traffic, the stormwater runoff, and security. So, thank you. Any questions?
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name's David Shaver, and I live with Pam on 401 South Bryant Street. Most of our questions have been answered, and I appreciate our city representative addressing our issues before we spoke. I worked for the USGS for about 30 years. The only suggestion I would like, because I dealt a lot during my time with modeling, the photos that my wife sent you of the flooding make a good data point to validate modeling to see if it meets the actual rainfall. You have National Weather Service rainfall available to the modeler. It just seems a good opportunity. Models are models, reality is reality. Use reality to assess your modeling. That's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. My name is David Austin. I live at 710 West Bryant Street. I live right on the bottom right-hand corner of the map there. This map does not show the entire lot that you're talking about today. The bottom corner of it is cut off here. First thing I want to say is I do not want 3-story apartments built right next door to my house. In between single-story residential areas. I don't think that's a good idea. I understand that bus has probably already left, but I just wanted to state my opposition to that. One thing I wanted to ask or point out, I don't know if this will make any difference, is the lot, Bryant cuts through the lot. And so when you're talking about density, it's including the density south of Bryant, because as far as I know, that lot's not buildable. Or is the density just including the part that you see here? That's the question I would have. I don't know if it makes any difference whatsoever. We have something else I wanted to bring up. We've heard a lot about water runoff. A solution that I would propose is instead of building apartments, build duplexes. Duplexes would go better in between 2 residential subdivisions. And with the duplex, you would have less parking area. You'd have less asphalt. You would have less runoff going into the sinkhole, which would help with the water runoff issue. So that's the only thing I had to say.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, my name is Barbara Acuff, and I have lived in the Nixa area for 37 years. I've worked in Nixa for 27 years at the Mercy Clinic until I had to retire early due to having a fall. And I've lived in my current house for 5 years, and that's at 875 West Chestnut Bend. So I am on the corner of Dustin and Truman. right up there in the corner. And so this view that I'm showing you is my front windows, which are in the back of my house. So as you can see, I have a nice view right now with the trees, but once these buildings come in, what trees are going down, and I will be looking at three-story buildings, and they'll be watching me in my backyard, depending on how the placement of the patios or balconies or the design of these apartments. So I am concerned. When I bought my house, if I'd known about the zoning, I probably would not have purchased it. I bought it from the owner, so it wasn't disclosed to me, and I didn't ask. So, but the word was around the neighborhood and everyone that I talked to, I didn't come to the city, but they said, oh, it's going to be a nice 55 gated community and everything. And then the other talk was, oh, they'll never build on that. There's sinkholes on it, so just won't be a problem whatsoever. Well, I do know that this area has a lot of water problems due to being at the Nixa Clinic and being there when they built it at 2005. 18 acres, 9 acres of sinkholes. So, so there is a drainage in the park, and that water is retained for days, and it's getting worse. And recently, in the last 2 weeks, a portion of a sinkhole has opened up, and concrete has been put into that area to kind of take care of it. I know this is a done deal, and I know I can't fix it, but I can ask you and plead with you that you help me with some concerns that I have. And one is for a sound barrier. If we've not seen any elevation of landscaping yet, what they propose for landscaping, I will do my part as trying to put trees and barriers on my side if you could help me with maybe the builder to putting in nice landscaping. Increased traffic. Since Truman has opened up, it's gotten to be a speedway. And I know there's been presence of police there. They have, but they can't, monitor it all the time. But we do have older people that live in the community on Dustin that try to back out, and it's like dodgeball for them, and some are in their 80s and 90s. So, I know there's just, it's done, and I can live with it if you will help me to address the concerns that I have, and that is for sound barrier, my privacy, security is another issue too. We, in our little park down there, we've had several people that have been spending the night in the park. So, we have neighbors that go and they walk the walking parks and they find people sleeping on the benches there. I don't know. I spend some couple days a week walking from my house down to 14, picking up the little liquor bottles and all kinds of trash to kind of keep our neighborhood nice. And that's what I want. I just want my neighborhood to stay nice. Can you help me, please? Just do that, because I did buy my house. This is the view that I'm going to have, and I want to stay there. I'd like to stay there. I bought it to stay there until, it'll be my last home, but there have gotten to be some issues. So thank you for your time, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Vicki Porter McGowan. I live at 892 West Heather Glen Road. And my husband and I moved up here in 2017 from Houston, Texas, where we have been flooded. And I don't know if anybody's had that experience in your life, but I have. And trust me, it is not something that is pleasant. And when you have to deal with insurance, FEMA is not fun. You also have to deal with mortgage. If you own a home outright, you're in better shape than if you don't, because everything has to go through the mortgage company before you get your payment to fix your homes. These people have valid concerns, just as I have the same valid concerns, because my property faces the sinkholes in the field behind on the south. When we moved up here, we were told that, yeah, it's probably never going to be built on because of the sinkholes, this property that you're showing me. The fact that and I'm sure the designs are lovely, but it's still going to be 3 stories? Are you kidding me? And most of our homes are single-story homes. They have basements, but they don't have 2 stories. And these things are going to be looming over the top of us, ginormous structures over the top of us. Where a lower-rise apartment complex, like at the front of the Truman, or the duplexes right behind those 2 apartment, those are much more manageable, nicer facilities for us to look at. They're not towering over us, looming over us. And what happens if one of those sinkholes decides not to support these towering, looming, 3-foot monstrosities that they're going to put up? Sorry, they're probably lovely buildings. But what's going to happen? They're going to fall in that sinkhole. They could possibly kill people. They could possibly eat up other people's property. Their cars are gone. The people may be gone. We don't know. The flooding, well, it's Lake Woodfield Park is what it is. When it rains hard, and it did all spring, as you know, it was Lake Woodfield Park. And some of these people may end up having to buy flood insurance, especially if they put all the hardscape down. I came from Houston, Texas. Houston, Texas has hardscape everywhere now because we have so many people that are flooding into that area. The bayous were not deep enough, not wide enough, not big enough to support taking all of that water from all of that hardscape, running off right through the middle of Houston, flooding everything. My home got flooded, never had flooded, was built in the 60s. Our neighborhood was beautiful, and then it wasn't. And I'm just going to tell you right now that this is a very reality for some of us, and I'm scared to death that this is going to happen to me a second time in my life. Once was truly enough. And if you have anything of value that you might want to hang on to, like my dad's building my bedroom set and having to try to get that repaired and put back to where it looks like it did when my dad built it for me, that was not easy, and it was very costly to do, but that was the only thing that I cared about. And some of you have some things going on, but ask yourselves this: would you really want to live with something this tall near your own homes, looming over you? Would you really want to be in that situation when, as the zoning person, should be planning out where these things go? There is a lot, a huge lot, that's for sale right behind the wine and liquor store there on the corner of Truman and 14. And that lot is flat, it has no trees, could be easily built upon, and yet they've chosen to build further back. Okay, fine. But keep it within reason. I mean, they want to go to 55 feet when it's been approved for 35. Is that correct? Is that understanding correct?
No, it was already previously approved for 55 feet.
Well, I really want you to consider what that's going to look like, feel like, and affect. There's going to be lights all over that place. We're going to be lit up like no tomorrow. And when you're on Heather Glen, there's one way in and there's one way out, and there's no dead-end sign to assuage people from coming down that block and then having to turn around and come straight back out. We can't even get a trash truck down there without, and them turn around. They have to back down one way or the other. Whether they come in backing down or they go out backing down, they have to back down. So I would like you to consider some of these issues before approving this ginormous project. It's way too big for our neighborhood.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I am Pat Austin. I live at 710 West Bryant with David, and we're right on that corner. And we've been there for 21 years. And when we came, we had cows. We didn't have a development behind us. Good houses weren't there. I mean, there was nothing there. And it's okay that we had developments come in, but this apartment complex, it's like horrible. I mean, all of us feel like it's a horrible thing. Our privacy, the lights, the noise, the traffic, And the traffic concerns me because we say that we'll do reports on the traffic. Well, that's a brand-new road, brand new. Cars are just flying down there, and there's still barriers up. They have moved the barriers to get down that road. And so if you do in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, it's not going to be a true of what that road is going to be. And I wonder about the speed limit on that road. I really do. New development by Pembroke down there, that's a big development. This is going to be a major south to north. So you have all these cars, people going to work 8, 9 o'clock, 7, 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. There's not that much road between these apartments and the traffic light, right? Think about the pileup of the cars all the way back down Truman. And the people coming south won't even use it anymore because they can't get through. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Ron Sanders, live here in Nixa. This was supposed to be like a 55-plus community or something before, and now we're doing the bait and switch again. So we're reconfiguring it to be something else. Has something to do with the finance, the economy and everything, adding a few buildings. Those bottom 3 buildings weren't there in the original plan, right? I don't remember. I don't think they were. But those 2 buildings down there at the bottom, right along that power line, I guess the 3rd floor, one of the primary views is going to be the power lines right above the trees. And they're not going to be able to put but 20-foot trees there because of the power line. So I guess people on the 3rd floor, it's going to be like the perfect exhibitionist loft or whatever you want to call it, because they're going to be able to see right into the backyards of everybody, of those 4 or 5 properties right there to the east. It's like trying to fit, 10 pounds of crap into a 5-pound bag is what it looks like to me. And then you add a little bit more because you got half of the high school students, they can't get down Gregg Road because the high school moved the parking for the high school students to the lot over there that they bought. So now you got 150 to 200 cars between 7 and 8 trying to get to the high school, competing on Gregg Road. So what do? They figure out that Truman's open, Dustin Lane gets them around Inman School. So all they have to do is speed, just speed right down Dustin Road, in between all of the parked cars and the lady trying to run away from the pit bull and everything. And now you have an additional 50 or 60 cars trying to get through there in 15 minutes or so, while the 80 new residents, mom and dad, I'm pretty sure they're going to be like 2 and 3 bedroom apartments. So there's going to be mom and dad or whoever, 2 or 3 people going to work between 6 and 8, 6 and 9, getting out of those apartment complexes, competing with all the school students trying to get to school, taking the shortcut down Dustin Lane because they don't want to stop and deal with all the clogged up traffic because of that little Inman Elementary School that's like, 100 feet from the main intersection that just gets jammed up and everything. So just like the last problem where we had 50 people in here, they're building a place that just has horrible traffic and is just going to make it worse. And then we're going to make it 3 stories because of the economy. We got to put that extra story up there to make it economically feasible, where everybody that lives up on that 3rd story is going to be able to see right into the neighbors' yards, people that bought their house, 15, 20 years ago and wanted some privacy. There's no way to put trees up to create any screening really because of the power lines. And everybody's going to be looking at power lines and stuff. It just doesn't make sense. The only thing that makes sense is economically, it will make more money, whatever. But I guess people's privacy isn't worth as much. I was looking at all the maps that I could while we were sitting here. I can't see how you could fit any decent 40 or 50-foot trees along Truman Boulevard to create any screening for Heather Glen or the people that live on Dustin Lane or the people north there, I guess they're just going to have to try to grow a bunch of trees there to gain their privacy back or anything like that. It's crazy because it's just destroying the value of all the homes around them. And it's going to drive, I know it's only like, what, 15 or 20 people, maybe 30 people? It's only going to affect 30 people, so it's not that big of a deal, I guess, except to the 30 people or so. It's a pretty big deal to them because they put a lot of money and they put half their life into those or into their houses and everything, not anticipating that somebody would come in and do this. It's not a done deal yet, is it? You guys still have to vote on it, right? Well, I hope you guys vote appropriately because it's just a little too much. A little bit too much in that 5-pound bag.
Thank you.
I was not going to talk, but I am the new one on the block. In fact, I haven't even moved in yet. I didn't know that there was zoning for bird watchers that are going to look into my every window, that will watch everything that myself and my daughter, my dogs, my cat, if it gets out of the house, will do. I'm sure that every one of my neighbors that I have met that have been wonderful feel the same way. I cannot implore upon you all to actually table this and come and see us, see what we're talking about, see where the land is, see where it has been flooding. Do a little bit of field work before you start voting on things. And that would be probably a really good practice for the rest of your terms. Because in Nixa, we are a sleeper community. I don't care how you look at it. We're sleepers. We can't have, none of our businesses really go very well because everybody goes into Springfield or goes to Ozark or even goes to Republic to get stuff. And so everybody's going to come to Nixa to live. That's all said and good, but we've got so many apartment buildings coming in that people need to be more cognizant of what we're doing to the people that are already here. I've been here since the early 1990s, and I've lived behind Pizza Hut. I've had a home behind John Thomas, and now I have a home behind all of this. I can't implore enough just to come and walk and see where we're talking about. You can come and stand in my backyard if you'd like. There's one way in and one way out, pretty much the way that everything is on Truman. But it's interesting. Thank you very much.
What was your name, ma'am?
I need,
I
need your name and address. My name is Tammy Donica. My new address is 403 South Bryant. Thank you.
My name is Rick Henderson. I live at 896 Dustin Lane, Nixa, Missouri. First of all, I'd like to start with a compliment, especially for the audience tonight in the demeanor here. Very nice, enjoyable. I'd especially like to thank Scott for his undying patience with me. I have the misfortune of being involved in several community projects in South Florida. And I just wonder if you've ever bought a house without looking at it. You ever buy a car without driving it? And yet we're getting ready to hand a major project for this city to this gentleman here, which I'm sure is very qualified. But I'd just like to know if there is any possibility of simply delaying it, as the lady said, tabling. I have the good fortune not having to look at this, even though I lived in Woodfield. But my neighbors are kind, generous, and very respectful of the community and everybody here. And if you've ever approved a project like this, and I'm assuming you have, because I haven't lived here but a year, even though I'm from Springfield, educated in Springfield, and I lived in South Florida for 42 years. But I hope you would take consideration and let this gentleman, or give him time, I'm hoping you would give him time, create elevations, see what it looks like, where we can see what the building's going to look like. I don't have any problems with apartment complexes. They serve a tremendous value. There are many, many people, unfortunately, that cannot afford a home, that can afford an apartment. The other thing I like to address, and Scott informed me today, the only thing I have a real problem with is the height of the building. I know it's legal. I know it can be done. I'm sure it'll probably be very nice when you get done. But if it could be put on top of a two-story complex instead of a three-story complex, it solves your height elevations, solves the initial impact visually of the community. And I realize that the economic of today, interest rates, land cost, building construction, I was in construction 52 years. I realize that you've got to get the numbers to make them work. And, but some consideration, if you could do that, I have no problem with that at all, none whatsoever, other than I would just like to slow things down. I know you haven't voted on it. Am I allowed to ask questions at all of anybody? Is anything in here, in this PUD, set in stone?
Only what is currently approved in the 2008 document for Lot 50.
So they can actually redesign these buildings and move them around anywhere they want to?
Correct. If not, once approved, the layout would be basically what you see in
But it hasn't been approved yet? Correct. So they could come back with a different proposal, can they come back with a different proposal, Scott, in the future and say, well, we don't like this one, we're going to do something else?
If it was significant changes over what could potentially be approved by council, it would require council approval again. But if it's insignificant changes, the PUD document grants the planning and development director approval.
So once the council approves the PUD, that's pretty much set in stone, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All righty. One other issue, and I happen to own the only sinkhole, my good fortune, in Woodfield, is next to my home. And I heard, I believe you mentioned the 100-year flood in your presentation. Do we know what the 100-year flood, according to this lady that lives every day in life, do we know what the 100-year flood is for this property? Elevation.
That will be part of the new sinkhole evaluation. They'll provide a flooding elevation, which would be based off the 100-year storm event, and a 100-year 6-hour storm event, I believe, is what it would be.
So the real answer to the question is we really don't know.
Not currently.
Okay. Will we have an opportunity for them to review this once we have the 100-year representation of elevations?
It will be a staff review at that point. We send it to a third-party engineer
Okay.
for review.
All righty. I want to thank you for your time. You're a wonderful group of people. I have the good fortune of living here. I love Nixa, and every one of you are ladies and gentlemen, and your staff is excellent, just excellent people. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Ryan Gist, 880 West Heather Glen Road. I'll be quick because I'm sure you all want to get home, and so do I. So, but thank you for your time, because I know time is precious. It's one thing that we can never get back. So, speaking on that, when we moved here 7 years ago, you're correct. What a lot of people are saying, sinkholes all around. Jackpot. No one's ever building. This is going to be awesome. Finally found that diamond in the rough to where I can bring up my young family and make sure that the two people on the side of me with their young families, they're going to grow up together. Because I grew up in a neighborhood in Springfield, loved it, cul-de-sac, not a lot of traffic. They always try to drive down there, and then they'd find out that you couldn't get through. But we had awesome neighbors, great people to grow up with, made friends for a lifetime, and that's what my kids were doing also. Now that this is going in, one's already moving. So her two best friends, I have two children, their two best friends that are like sisters to them now are gone. Because yes, they'd be looking right in their bedroom window and bathroom windows and one of their child's windows. So that's my biggest concern, is the height of these and not having any privacy. You might have it on the back end a little bit, but I don't care what you do there with the sinkhole, it's gonna flood. I don't care what anyone says. And on the front end of Truman there, we're not gonna have any privacy either in our backyard, because ours slopes down. We have a basement. We're fortunate enough to have that. So these other ones that are on this other side, where it's on the other side of the pool on the south side, we'll be waving every day. And they'll be looking into our backyard and our house also, which doesn't seem real private to me anymore. So those are some of the concerns for me there. Like my wife was saying, Lauren Gist, the two buildings with the 55 and up community that was faced a different way, that definitely was a little bit more respectful and had a little more privacy. But I don't care what anybody says, what he's going to build, what they're going to do, just like Mr. Stinger said. Yeah, it's R3. We can build whatever we want there, pretty much. It can look however it wants. We can make the materials whatever we want. And once the money starts running out and he's like, oh, if I cut costs here, if I cut costs here, if I cut costs here, I'm going to make a lot more. And then what do we have over there? Something that lasts maybe nice 3-5 years, and then all of a sudden isn't as nice anymore. So those are some of my concerns. And I don't know if they sell redwoods anymore, but maybe that's something I'm going to have to look into for my backyard. Because if you're looking at a 20-foot tree to try to cover up a 51-foot building, 55, it's going to be a little tough. I'm going to need something a lot taller than that. But I think our police do a great job. And it's going to give them a lot more work down through that road, too. It's kind of like I found the perfect car I've been looking for forever. Pristine, candy red. Parked it super far out in the parking lot, so no one else parked next to me. And then I get out there, and then someone parked next to me and gave me a little ding. That's what the road did. Got me that little ding. It's something I can kind of get over. And, you know, now I tell my kids, you're not going in that street anymore. You don't get to play there anymore. But then now with these 9 apartments that are 55 feet tall and can be positioned however they want and built however they want and have the finishings that they want, that ding's going to turn in probably to possibly even totaling that car that I've been searching for forever. So like someone else said, gosh, in the industry I work in, I tell people that I work with, my peers and people that are even above me or under me, if you treat every single person that you meet every single day just like your family or your best friend, I promise you your day is going to be a lot better. I guarantee it. You'll have the respect, and you'll be a lot more successful too. So that's all I can ask is, gosh, treat us like your family or your best friends, and take that in consideration. Thank you for your time. Take care.
Thank you.
I'm still Jeff Belcher. Something just kind of struck me when you said that this would have to go back to planning and zoning if something significant were to change. You know, you've got a whole room full of people here. You're drastically changing their lives, their livelihood. They've worked their ass off their entire life to retire down here. A lot of these people are older. This is going to be their final home. And it seems to me your main concern in the beginning was making sure that runoff water got filtered before it went down the sinkhole. How big was that little grass patch? Adequate enough to filter that water? How big was that?
Not yet designed.
What's that?
It wasn't designed yet.
Oh, it hasn't
Because
been
they
designed
They
yet.
haven't even started any of
Well,
this
what's
yet.
in that field right now? Grass? Good guess? Maybe? That sounds like it takes a lot of planning and work for that. This planning and zoning almost sounds like sneaking and stealing. These people are actually being affected. I live right up the road there. I'm just up on South Ellen there. Believe me, I know what they're dealing with. I've got 3 apartment complexes staring into my backyard every day, and you know what? I do my damnedest to make sure they don't stare long. Would you like to be in that position? Would any of you like to be in that
Mr. Belcher,
position?
could you please, Mr. Belcher, could you please direct your comments to the mayor and staff? I'm
Sure.
sorry, mayor and council. Staff's job is to evaluate the code, and...
Well, I thought we were allowed to ask
that's what-
questions.
That's what Mr.
been asked
Godby's doing, so just, if you don't mind.
Okay. Well, it just seems ridiculous to me that a little bit of grass is supposed to fix the water quality, and that's what we're worried about with this whole deal. That's what's getting studied, that's what's going to make sure we get that taken care of, is the water going in the sinkhole. Well, how did that sinkhole get formed in the first place? Anybody? Do you know how sinkholes are formed?
Water.
Could I ask the USGS career guy?
Yeah, it's essentially water that's settled over a soluble lithology, will go typically into crack and creates what's called a dolene or a sinkhole. And one thing I'd like to point out is, speaking as a geologist, the sinkholes that we have in our backyard and the other 2 are not a recent formation. They've probably been sinkholes before Nixa was Nixa. And they were well established and adjusted to the drain-off of the topography for centuries, eons. Did I answer your question?
Kinda. They come from water, and we've had one here at Bentwater, I believe. Took on too much water, opened up again. We had one here on Tracker Road, took on too much water at the bottom of the hill there, opened up again. I don't know how long that road was closed down, but it happens. They may have been fine for 200,000 years, but right here, you look at that picture, the mighty grass that's going to keep that water clean is gone. So, yeah, that sinkhole may have been fine for the last 250 years, however long we've been studying it, observing it, whatnot. But we're drastically changing the environment and the conditions for those sinkholes. We're creating conditions for them to become worse, to accelerate their deterioration. And we're worried about the water quality. What about the quality of our citizens? Their quality of life, their quality of their property values? We're worried about water? Seems like our intentions and maybe greed may be misplaced, you know. Take care of what you got, not what you see down the road. These are just a lot of troubles. It's more and more apartment complexes. I've heard for the last 4 years that we need economic development. We need economic development. We need to create jobs. Did we give up on that? Every piece of land is seemingly residential. Where are the solutions for commercial properties? I hear none of that. I hear tons of proposals for more apartments, more duplexes. So we've got all these economic studies we're doing and this and that, for what? What are we wasting there? We're a bedroom community. Always have, always will be. So this whole smoke and mirrors, we need more money so we can do these economic impact studies, they're a joke. And I'm just hoping there's enough people here tonight that people will start opening their eyes and saying, you know what, that doesn't make sense to most people. Why are we dumping money in a downtown revitalization when all we're doing is flooding people, flooding the land, flooding the sinkholes? It's not our problem. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, if we don't have any more visitors, we will close the public hearing. Anything else from council? And I do agree with what Tammy said. If you guys haven't been over there, anytime we are doing anything on a rezone or approving a plat, it definitely helps to get out, go see it. Sometimes it does help to get out and talk to people, because someone almost called the cops on me one day for sitting in the street and looking at what they were talking about, so it definitely does help.
It does. I went and talked with Barbara a cuff and physically saw what was going on. So, and it does help. It does put it in perspective.
Perfect. No one else has been out there. I urge you to go do that. So, thank you. Okay, moving on to our second reading of ordinances, Council Bill 2023-25.
Second reading Council Bill Number 2023-25, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Nixa amending Section 16-200 of the Nixa City Code to authorize the discharge of fireworks within the city limits on July 3rd. Presenting is Assistant City Administrator Cindy Robbins.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As Becca said, this is the second reading of the ordinance that was presented at the last meeting. As a reminder, our current code, our previous code stated that fireworks could be discharged only on the 4th of July from 2 p.m. until 11 p.m. Last year, an amendment was made to extend that to July 3rd and July 4th from 2 p.m. until 11 p.m. But that was only for 2022. The ordinance presented tonight for your consideration amends the city code to allow for fireworks to be discharged inside the city limits on July 3rd and July 4th each year between the hours of 2 p.m. and 11 p.m. I do want to remind you guys that the ordinance presented tonight still does contain the statement that prohibits the discharge of fireworks during a burn ban. So that still stays in there. Staff does recommend approval of this ordinance this evening, and I am available for any questions you may have.
Okay. Any questions? All right. Thank you, Ms. Robbins.
Thank you.
If there are no questions, we will open up the public hearing. If anyone would like to speak on this matter.
I'm still Jeff Belcher, and I'm still here. This is the reason I came 3 hours and 7 minutes ago, was for this subject right here. Sorry you had to tolerate everything else in the meantime. If I could have spoken the first 5 minutes, I'd have been out. The third and the fourth, I mean, I kind of get it. You know, okay, we get 2 days. But you're sticking them right smack in the middle of the week, and that was the whole idea behind the premise of changing this one last year, was it falls in the middle of the week. Nobody could come up with a solution. Most people I know, they get the 4th of July off. That's their holiday. Apparently city employees get the Monday and the Tuesday. I don't know. It makes it tough to actually celebrate. You know, typically it's beer, barbecue, and blowing stuff up. And when I got to get up the next morning to go to work, that doesn't make for a very enjoyable festive day. We get 1 day. I guess we get 2 this year. I would propose, give us the 2 days, make it either the weekend before or the weekend after, where people have the opportunity to gather with their families from out of town. Traveling during the middle of the work week is tough for a lot of people. Not everyone has the luxury to go down to the lake house for the weekend and watch the fireworks on the dam or on the lake or whatever. A lot of them are at home, doing family gatherings, doing reunions, doing that kind of thing. If I'm going to drive 2 states away, I'm not going to go to a reunion on a Tuesday afternoon, knowing I got to work the next day. And besides that, it's Independence Day. It's our holiday to celebrate our American freedom, our right to blow stuff up. To me, that's a big deal. 246 years, I believe, we've celebrated Independence Day. 1 day a year. Why can't we make it a weekend? I brought a proposal last week, and last year, everybody's saying, well, we don't know how to do it. We don't know how we can figure it out. Well, it's pretty easy. Instead of bouncing it from year to year to year to year to year to year, set it in stone. If the 4th falls on a Wednesday, we're going to do it the weekend before. If it falls on a Thursday or Friday, we're going to do it the weekend after. Takes one ordinance, one declaration, and then you can put it on the calendars. It's done. There's nobody's guessing. The fireworks display stands, they're not guessing. They know when it is. They know when their big days are. There's no surprises. I think law enforcement might have it a little easier with a set schedule. Hey, this is when you're allowed to do it. This is when you're not. During the week, people are going to complain. People are going to bitch. Oh, I got to work. I don't get the 4th of July off. I got to get up in the morning. Now you're going to sit there and make me listen to people's bombs going off till midnight? Maybe later? I mean, it's just, I get it. There's a few Karens out there that, oh, it scares my dogs. Well, go to the vet and get some doggy downers. They'll be fine. Do it on Friday and Saturday and Sunday. Give it the weekend. You're still getting 2 days. It doesn't matter to none of you guys, I don't guess. Does it matter to you if it's on Wednesday or Tuesday or Saturday and Sunday when you can spend out time with your family? You know, distant family you don't get to see on a regular occasion. Get-togethers, friends, that kind of deal. Maybe have a day to recover from too many beers the night before. These are all great pros to doing it on the weekend. It's a 4th of July weekend. Granted, the holiday is a day, but for a lot of us, it is a 2-day deal, you know. And again, I don't want to be that guy blowing off bombs till, you know, midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. And my neighbor's got to get up, go to work the next day. That's just rude. On the weekends, sorry. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm still Ron Sanders. Maybe instead of having just a Independence Day, it's that bad idea fairy getting on my shoulder there. Maybe we should have a Independence Month. Maybe we should have a Freedom Month. There's other things to celebrate whole months about. Why not our freedom? Why not our liberty? Why not all of the things that we hold dear, we celebrate for the whole month? You know, we start off with studying a little bit of the Magna Carta on the first day, you know, and then we get into the Bill of Rights on the second day. And then on the third day, we can read through one of the three branches of government in our Constitution in cursive. That would be cool. And then on the fourth day, we take a break and we set off fireworks to celebrate all the stuff that we learned. And then we still have more amendments to study, and we have lots of, Supreme Court cases that tell us exactly where the boundaries of those amendments go, you know, like where you can and can't film, and where you can and can't carry your weapon, and, you know, whether you can open carry or not, or anything like that. Whether the government can stick people into your house because they don't have any place to live and stuff like that. Maybe if we did the whole month of July, and we gave the first Saturday before the 4th of July time for everybody to set up their fireworks displays and test their aim and everything, make sure that they're not going to hit the neighbor and stuff like that. That way, when they do the finale on the 4th, after studying all of the things that brought us, our freedom, including the Federalist Papers, we can dig into that a little bit too. We got 31 days. That's right. Correct myself here. We got 31 days in July that we can study where our freedoms came from. Maybe get to know some of the names of the people who actually signed the Declaration of Independence and what happened to them. I think half of them ended up destitute or hung or, shot to death or, whatever. Very few of them survived. Very few of them came out of the Revolutionary War with anything besides their freedom. So that would be worth a little bit of something during those 31 days. And then we could take the Saturday before the 4th of July and the 4th of July if it's on during the weekdays, and we can set off some fireworks and celebrate. Maybe encourage people to go to the range and, practice their marksmanship so that they don't shoot their neighbor if something bad happens, If people want to open carry, maybe during the month of July, we can say, hey, everybody, if you want to, go ahead and walk down the street open carrying. Nobody's going to freak out on you, even though some people will, because not everybody's going to participate in this 31 days of celebrating our freedoms and liberties. But maybe that would be a better thing to do, would be to make a declaration or a proclamation to say, hey, the month of July is Freedom and Liberty Month or something like that, Independence Month. Oh, that's just an idea.
Thank you. All right, if nobody else would like to speak on this, I will go ahead and close the public hearing. Anything else from council?
I was just going to say, Mr. Belcher, I'm in agreement with you on some of that. I know that being in the middle of the week, it is very hard. I love the 4th of July. It's my favorite holiday of the year. And that is why I asked staff to review that this year, because what we did last year was for last year only. And it gives it an extra day for those that do have to work on the 5th, that they can celebrate on the 3rd and recover on the 4th if necessary. Right? Unfortunately or fortunately, I work through the holiday. I mean, I have to work the day before, the day of, day after. Just that a lot of people do. And if we move it to the weekend before or the weekend after, it gets all confusing. It's like, well, is it this day we move it here, this way? Because we talked through some of that. So I asked staff to review this and what would make the most sense to keep it consistent going forward. So if we approve this tonight, it's going to be ongoing every year. So even on the weekends, if the 3rd is a Friday, you get to shoot off it on a Friday, and if it's on the 4th is on the Saturday, you get to shoot on the Saturday as well. If it's on Saturday and Sunday, it's ongoing from now on, unless someone after us changes that. So it's at least accommodating some of that work schedule that people have with having to go to the work on the 5th. They're still at least able to celebrate on the 3rd and what they choose to do on the 4th.
Anything else from council? Anything else from staff? No?
Mayor, Council, I would just reiterate to you that no matter what 2 days you choose to celebrate this particular holiday, you're going to find that people are going to celebrate on the 4th of July no matter what. So if you were to designate the weekend before, for example, you would have celebrations on that weekend, but invariably you would end up with somebody, well, a lot of people, frankly, celebrating on the 4th as well. And so with that being said, you have to make the decision that's going to be the best for everyone, because you can't open it up. It's probably not reasonable to allow a week's worth of fireworks celebration for the people who live in this city. At that point, you're going to have enough complaints from the citizens about the length and magnitude of those celebrations over that course of time. I'm not saying that I have an answer for the perfect scenario. I'm just saying that there are pros and cons to picking any particular day and designating that every year as the time that you should celebrate this particular holiday. If you celebrate the weekend after, for example, they're still going to celebrate on the 4th of July and probably the 5th of July, and then the weekend that follows. And so we have to decide, we have to make a decision that's going to be the best for everyone, that takes everybody into account, not just the people who love 4th of July, but the people who don't like 4th of July, for example. And we got to try to temper that with a good decision for everyone. And then we have to essentially look at the enforcement of the ordinance, because the way we enforce our ordinances are meaningful as well. Just my thoughts on that.
Thank you, Chief.
My only concern is that regardless of what is decided, if the fourth or third and fourth fall on a weekday, the weekend before they're going to be shot off anyway. So my only concern with that is the total number of calls for service that we'll receive. And the bad thing about that is by the time our officers get there, well,
They're done.
it's already been
There's
blown
no
up,
evidence,
and
yeah.
there's nothing. So that's my only concern.
Right.
So-
And Chief, I definitely appreciate you, because you said something about the fact that there's a lot of people that appreciate the holiday, but there's also people that don't like the holiday. And that's where it's concerning. I mean, there's a lot of people that have fought for our freedom to celebrate that day that can't stand that holiday because of the fireworks. And so that's why we have to figure out a way to really come together and try to make amends between the two. And I think how you put it was perfect, is like, hey, calls for service and the amount of time that we're allowed to do this, we're still gonna have people celebrating on the 4th. So even if it falls on a Wednesday, and we say, hey, Wednesday is the weekend before, you're gonna have 2 days of celebration there, and then you're also gonna have another day of the 4th of celebration as well. So being able to take it and limit it to, hey, we acknowledge that during the week, it is going to be difficult for people to celebrate it on the 4th, so we're gonna give them the 3rd to go along with that, I think is a great way to come together on this.
If nobody would like to recommend any revisions or anything, then I will accept a motion.
And I'll
make a
make that
motion.
motion. Or, okay, I'll let Darlene make it, and I'll second it.
Ms. Graham made the motion. Mr. Lucas with the second. Roll call, please.
Matt Ogden,
Yes.
Sean Lucas.
Yes.
Aaron Peterson,
Yes.
Darlene Graham.
Yes.
Kelly Morris.
Yes.
Okay. Moving on to Council Bill 2023-26.
Second reading Council Bill number 2023-26, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Nixa amending the 2023 annual budget to appropriate funds to hire 2 additional police officers beginning July 1st, 2023. Presenting is Police Chief Joe Campbell.
Mayor, Council, as you know, in April, there was a sales tax passed to support law enforcement. And one of the main objectives with that sales tax was to address staffing shortages within our police department. In an effort to address that quickly, and at the direction of you and the council, we are looking at this budgetary amendment to add 2 additional police officers for fiscal year 2023. Those officers would be added as a mid-year addition, so we budgeted for 6 months of salary, benefits, and then the equipment to outfit those officers as well. That total amount comes to $90,041.00. That did not, however, include an additional vehicle, which is something that we take into consideration when we look at the number of officers we're adding, which is typically for every 2 patrol units, we potentially add a police car to go with that. The reason for that is because the market right now is not conducive to buying police cars, and the chances of us getting one are very low. So we will address that in a future budget to make those additional vehicle purchases as we grow the department. If you have any questions, I'm available. I will also mention that the source of funding for this budgetary amendment is coming from current revenues. Any questions?
Any questions? Thank you, Chief. If there's no other questions, we'll open up the public hearing. No. We will close the public hearing. Anything else from council? All right, I will accept a motion.
So made.
Second.
First by Mr. Lucas, second by Mr. Ogden. Roll call, please.
Sean Lucas.
Yes.
Aaron Peterson,
Yes.
Darlene Graham.
Yes.
Kelly Morris,
Yes.
Matt Ogden.
Yes.
And we would all just love an update from the Parks Department on the pool.
Absolutely. Last Wednesday, June 7th, the leak investigators were out to the pool. They isolated the location of the leak in the lower 7 returns, which is you're looking at the diving well area, so that side of the pool. The camera they used is one of the 2 cameras that the company has. The camera went into the pipes, was able to make a couple turns. As going in, identified what they may believe is a suspect spot. They will be back this Thursday, so June 15th, with a specialized camera and do a helium test to further pinpoint the location. Upon finding something, they will provide us a report of their activities on Thursday, which we will then provide to administration and share with council.
Let's
Happy to answer any questions.
Let's clarify this, though. The leak is not in the pool itself, because that's what a lot of people think, and it's not draining from the pool itself, right?
They are looking at lines that run on the pool deck, so from the pump house, the pool deck down into the diving well. So the exact location along those lines is what they're looking to pinpoint. So I don't know the exact location of the leak.
So I've had some questions about that because I've had people say that you could just tear up the concrete and easily find the leak, which yes, that is true, but our goal here is to find the exact location of the leak, only tear out a small piece of concrete, fix the issue, and have the pool opened as fast as possible.
That is the goal, yes.
So, and not tear up everything around the pool.
Right.
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Did want to give a little update. I don't know if any of you all attended the soft opening of the 14 mil. It was a lot of people there. They're opening fully tomorrow. They're still waiting on their liquor license, but I think I tried 4 different places while I was there. Extremely stuffed by the time I left. The entertainment was great. Everything about it was just amazing. I think it's something that at one point I went back to take a picture of everything, and there was a dad playing catch with his daughter on the turf, and Drew's kid was rolling around, and it was just, it was really cool. And then even Mr. Belcher was there today putting in some new lights, and it's just, I think it's looking really, really great. I think it's exactly what Nixa needed, and I think I know I'm very excited. And then also, one thing to be thinking about, council, liaison reports are going to be coming up soon. Bad deal for you, Sean, since you switched over, you're going to have to do probably another one here soon, even though you just did one. So my apologies.
The newbies go first.
Yeah, my first that I'm looking at, the first 3 are the police department, planning and development, and parks. So I haven't heard from you in a while, Darlene, and I figured we'd get you up here to present.
That was last year.
Yep, that was last year.
That was last year.
But I know that I was actually going to talk with Parks because I think there's a lot going on with Parks, especially with things going on at Rotary and stuff, that the community might need an update on that sooner rather than later. So that is my updates. Anything else from council?
Blood drive here Thursday.
Thursday, blood drive. And speaking of the blood drives, I've worked with them to get on the schedule where we always offer them as soon as everyone is ready. So, because I know one problem is they were spread apart before, and so some people would go donate at the blood center, and then there would be one available here, and they weren't eligible to donate. So we're going to try to do them here as often as we possibly can. That's a huge thing for me and the rest of us. So anything else?
Mayor, are
Yes,
those
ma'am.
times like always set in stone, like the 10 to 4? Is that what they want, or is it what we want? Because that's like hard for people. I mean, I'd love to come and donate, but I work from 7 to 5.
True.
So a couple times with a mobile unit in the parking lot.
I'll see if they can adjust that, because their work hours are 9 to 5.
Right.
And so they get here, and then I'll have to see.
Okay.
Maybe
So-
we can call over and get you an extended lunch or something.
Okay.
Jimmy knows some people over there.
We might call.
Yeah. But yeah, I'll ask them. I'm not sure.
Okay.
That's how it's kind of always been, but
I know, and
I've never
I always
asked.
hate it because I was like, I would love to come and donate, but you don't ever get a chance to, so. And I have some pretty good blood.
Well,
They like mine.
I will find out for you.
Thanks, Mayor.
Anything else from staff?
Yeah, Mayor, just a few things. City offices will be closed on Juneteenth, Monday, June 19th for that holiday. We also, just another reminder, we've been communicating to the public, but just to make sure that we're getting out there frequently, we are switching to a new ERP system, and so that is quite the endeavor, and staff is working very hard and diligently to try to make that go as smoothly and quickly as possible. But part of that conversion, especially on the billing side, is really going to affect the dates in which people can make payments, and so we will not be able to accept payments after 4:30 p.m. on the 21st through the 25th of this month. So we're going to continue. I know Drew's doing a fantastic job, and Macy getting that information out. We're going to continue to do that as much as we can through all avenues that we can. But unfortunately, that's just outside of our control. But I can tell you, once we get the new system, I think we'll all be very, very pleased. I think the headaches will be worth it in the long run.
Are we going to delay any of the shut-offs just because of confusion that may happen?
Yeah, probably. I'm gonna visit with Brian a little bit about some of that, and Jennifer, she's back tomorrow, I believe. So once she gets back, we're gonna sit down and work out some of those other details.
Okay.
Yep.
Question on that too,
You
for
bet.
anybody that's on auto draft or ACH payments for that currently, is the new system going to update that automatically, or are we going to have to do, or will citizens have to update that themselves with it?
No, we should be able to make that conversion. That's part of the thing, part of the deal. Yep, good question. Perfect. And then one Nixa One read kicks off at the Nixa branch June 29th, I believe, Drew, 6 to 8. So encourage you to come out. If you can make that, that'd be a great opportunity to come out. And that's all I got.
All right. Anything else? If there is nothing else, meeting is adjourned. Don't have to.
You don't have to get a motion to adjournment?